Chapter 906. Ningjing didn't expect Han Yunqi to admit her affair with Long Feiyi so directly. She also didn't expect Han Yunqi to ask her so directly. She was stunned. She thought that no one would ask about that feeling in her life. She thought that love would be buried deep in her memory with her and Tang Li's complete breakup. She really didn't expect anyone to understand. But so what if someone understood? Love. If she didn't love him, why would she allow herself to be pregnant with his child? If she didn't love him, why wouldn't she expose his relationship with Long Feiyi until now? However, this kind of love was not allowed. Just like the child in her belly, it could only hide its identity and was destined not to receive blessings. I don't love him. Ningjing refused to admit it. Han Yunqi frowned and said rudely, Ningjing, I look down on your cowardice. Why, you dare to love him but don't dare to admit it? I don't. Ningjing still refused. Okay, I'll go and kill Tang Li now. Anyway, he will never betray the Tang sect if he falls into the hands of the D clan. The sooner he dies, the sooner he can be reincarnated. Han Yunqi was about to call for help as she spoke. Ningjing rushed over like a madwoman and covered her mouth tightly. Those who didn't know better would think that Ningjing was going to murder Han Yunqi. Han Yunqi pushed Ningjing's hand away with all her strength and asked angrily, You still won't admit it? Since you're afraid, you might as well stop loving him. Han Yunqi, do you think love is a negotiation? Do you think you can say no just because you want to? Ningjing finally broke down. She fell to the ground, and tears fell one by one like beads dropping from a string. I love him. Han Yunqi, I love Tang Li. I love him very, very much, but I can't. I can't betray my brother anymore. I've already caused him to be like this. I can't love him anymore. I don't dare to love him anymore. Grievances and self-reproach welled up in her heart. Her tears had already burst out of her eyes. Even though she had brothers and sisters, she had never been taken care of or cherished since she was young. Between brothers and sisters, apart from responsibility, there was only the kinship hidden deep in the bottom of their hearts, that mutual love. Since she was young, she had been dressing up as a man. Most of the time, she had almost forgotten that she was a woman. That was until she met Tang Li. No matter how she ordered him around or tormented him, even when she hit or cursed him, he'd always chuckled and protected her meticulously. He never retorted when she cursed him or hit him. Even though she knew all along that it wasn't true, even though she had always been on her guard, she was still infatuated with the feeling of being protected and doted on. In the end, she still fell in love with that man and relied on him. At first, Han Yunqi's face was cold. But gradually, her heart was broken by Ningjing's cries. She knew the pain and suffering of loving someone but not being able to love him. She understood it all too well. Han Yunqi hugged Ningjing gently and let Ningjing bury her head in her lap. She said faintly, Ningjing, don't cry. Remember, it's your own business who you like and dislike. There's nothing you can or can't do. There's only willing and unwilling. Ningjing suddenly pushed Han Yunqi away. Her face was full of tears and she was very agitated. I can't. I can't. Han Yunqi, you can't. We can't let the D clan down like this. We can't hurt Ning Cheng like this. I didn't hurt him. That was an accident. Han Yunqi's emotions were also fluctuating. Ningjing, Eastern and Western Qin have a secret ceasefire agreement. After settling the Feng clan, I will return to the D clan. As the princess of Western Qin, I will advance and retreat together with the D clan. Even if I have to go to the battlefield and meet Long Feiyi on the battlefield, I won't refuse. I don't want to let down Ning Cheng's loyalty. Ningjing was very surprised. I don't believe it. Uncle Cheng should know about this. If you don't believe me, you can ask him. Han Yunqi said seriously. Ningjing couldn't understand. Why? Why? Han Yunqi then realized that Ningjing was actually also a silly girl. She asked in return, because feelings aren't negotiations. You can't just say you don't love him anymore. Because I'm the same as you. We're both people of Western Qin. We can't betray the D clan's loyalty all these years. So, we have to bravely love, but we also have to bravely shoulder our responsibilities. A bitter smile flashed across Han Yunqi's face. Ningjing, even if you don't have a good ending, at least you have truly loved and worked hard, right? Long Feiyi and I have made an agreement. We will meet on the battlefield, but we won't fight with swords. While she was explaining, she took out an item. That item was none other than the East Qin Imperial Jade Seal. Ningjing's eyes widened in shock as her tears stopped abruptly. Long Feiyi gave it to me. When I leave him, I'll return it to him. Han Yunqi was clearly smiling as she spoke, but she didn't know why her eyes were suddenly wet. However, she stubbornly held back her tears. Her smile was calm and confident. Ningjing, do you know why Long Feiyi and I fought against Bai Yanqing? To save Gu Beiyue. To find out the true reason for the civil war in the Great Qin Empire. The reason for the civil war in the past, East Qin and Western Qin had different stories, so this could be a misunderstanding. Do you understand? This. Ningjing was very surprised. Ningcheng always thought that Long Feiyi was lying to me and using me. Han Yunqi carefully put away the East Qin Imperial Jade Seal and said, Ningjing, you and we will find out the truth of the past. This is the only chance for you and Tang Li to be together. Ningjing's hand unconsciously stroked the small bump hidden under her loose dress. This was not just a chance for her and Tang Li, it was also a chance for this innocent child. Han Yunqi, why are you so sure that I will believe you and help you? Ningjing asked back. Because you and I are in the same situation. Han Yunqi honestly said, instead of hiding the pain, it is better to give it a try. No matter how bad the result is, can it be worse than your current situation? Ningjing's eyes slowly fell onto Han Yunqi's sleeve. The East Qin Imperial Jade Seal was hidden in that sleeve. She looked at it without moving, making Han Yunqi's heart filled with vigilance. She and Ningjing were completely devoted, so Ningjing wouldn't sell her, right? If Ningjing revealed the matter of the Imperial Jade Seal, Long Feiyi would be in big trouble. Ningjing? Han Yunqi timidly asked. She hoped that she didn't misjudge her and didn't misjudge the relationship between Ningjing and Tang Li. At this time, Ningjing finally came back to her senses. She gave a self-deprecating laugh. Han Yunqi, our situation is different. Long Feiyi pampers you, but Tang Li. Her smile was incomparably bitter. It was funny enough that she fell in love with her enemy, but it was unrequited love. Tang Li doesn't love me, Ningjing bravely said. A complicated look flashed in Han Yunqi's eyes. She couldn't see through that brat Tang Li's thoughts. If she hadn't tested Ningjing's thoughts today, she would have thought that Ningjing wasn't worthy of Tang Li. Now she hoped that Tang Li wouldn't disappoint Ningjing's sincerity. Han Yunqi was deep in thought, but who would have thought that Ningjing would wipe her tears and seriously say, Han Yunqi, I'll take a gamble. Tang Li, he. Before Han Yunqi could finish, Ningjing interrupted her, it's fine as long as I love him. I only have one condition. Ningjing was indeed the bravest woman in the D clan. What condition? Feel free to state it. Han Yunqi smiled. You're not allowed to sacrifice any of the D clan's interests. Ningjing said seriously. I understand. Han Yunqi nodded. Say it. What can I do to help? Ningjing asked straightforwardly. Help me take control of Myriad Merchant Hall. Before your brother returns, I want the D clan to submit to me and not respect my status as a princess, Han Yunqi said seriously. You want to take control of the D clan before my brother returns. Ningjing was smart. Yes. Han Yunqi admitted openly. If your brother falls into Bai Yuqiao's hands, the D clan will be in danger. Han Yunqi, do you suspect that my brother will betray Western Qin? Ningjing was angry. I'm afraid that he'll be too disappointed and be instigated, Han Yunqi said lightly. My brother won't. Ningjing said angrily. I guarantee with my life that my brother won't betray Western Qin. Han Yunqi, do you know that a few decades ago, the D clan didn't know that Western Qin's imperial family still had an orphan alive? The D clan also thought that Western Qin's revenge was their responsibility and didn't stop searching for the Black clan and the Li clan. Han Yunqi, no one will personally destroy their own beliefs. Ningcheng won't, but what about the others? There are many fifth elders in the D clan, but there are also first elders. Isn't that right? Han Yunqi said seriously. Ningjing, I don't have much time. Long Feiyi still has a plan to lure Bai Yanqing out. I hope to openly join forces with him in the name of Western Qin's princess to fight against Bai Yanqing and publicly question the Great Qin Empire's civil war. Actually, Long Feiyi hadn't spoken directly that day, but she understood that he was making concessions. Long Feiyi had given her two choices. One was that she could take control of the D clan within 10 days and have them listen to her orders. She could also agree to join forces with East Qin against the Wind clan and question the civil war of the past. The other was that he would take her away while the two of them would deal with Bai Yanqing in private and refuse the D clan's participation. If the D clan couldn't capture Bai Yanqing, then they wouldn't be able to threaten Juni Xie. The D clan would lose the war in Northern Li for sure. Ningjing remained silent for a long time before she finally told Han Yunqi something crucial. Han Yunqi, Cloud Realm Trade Consortium has suffered heavy losses over the past 2 years because of the decline in the medicine business. Moreover, the southern and southern regions are now under the control of the Commander-in-Chief's estate. Even Cloud Realm Trade Consortium's most profitable businesses aren't benefiting from them. Although Tianning's national treasury is under our control, there's not much silver left after years of war. After a pause, she decided to throw caution to the wind and say, Han Yunqi, Cloud Realm Trade Consortium is nothing but an empty shell now. It's no longer what it used to be. The gambling houses and auction halls are the foundation of the D clan's wealth. Once they're destroyed, the D clan won't be able to support the massive military expenditures in a year's time. Han Yunqi liked Ningjing too much. It was so easy to work with smart people. Ningjing's words had hit the nail on the head. Han Yunqi had always wanted to use the crisis at Myriad Merchant Hall to control the D clan's purse strings. Now it looked like she'd made the right bet. What's the situation with the two gambling houses now? Han Yunqi asked hastily. Ningjing was about to answer when an attendant came over. Ningjing quickly wiped her face clean and straightened out her clothes. Miss Jing, Tang Li is clamoring to see you, the attendant reported. Chapter 907. Tang Li wanted to see her? Ningjing answered decisively, tell him I won't see him. By the way, tell him to give up on the thought of running away. He won't be able to escape. Han Yunqi smiled but did not say anything. She missed Tang Li a lot. She asked, if you don't go over, I'll go over. What do you want to do? Ningjing became nervous. I'll chat with him for a while. I hit it off with him, so I'm talkative, Han Yunqi said with a smile. Do you think you'll hit it off with him now? Don't forget your identity, Ningjing reminded cold. Want to make a bet? Han Yunqi asked. Although she had not seen Tang Li since her identity was revealed, and she did not know what kind of attitude Tang Li had toward her, she was sure that Tang Li had worshipped Long Feiyi since he was young and did not dare to disobey him. Even Long Feiyi acknowledged her. Would Tang Li dare to not acknowledge her as his sister-in-law? Ningjing was not interested at all. She said cold, don't tell anyone about us. If you want to embarrass yourself, I won't stop you. I'll go to the auction house to take a look. The real culprit behind this matter is not that simple. Ningjing was about to leave when Han Yunqi hurriedly stopped her. Let me ask you something. Speak. Ningjing was very straightforward. Where are Gu and Muling? Han Yunqi asked seriously. Bai Yuqiao had fallen from Gu's hands to Ning Cheng's. What happened in between? Gu's reply to her clearly said that everything was fine. Could it be that there was a trap in this letter? Gu left a long time ago. Muling is with Deacon Jean. You go and find it yourself. After Ningjing finished speaking, she turned around and left. Han Yunqi was a little surprised. Ningjing's words meant that Gu and Muling were both in the three-way black market. If Gu is gone, why would Muling fall into Deacon Jin's hands? Did Gu lose Ling again? Han Yunqi chased after her, wanting to ask what had happened. Unfortunately, Ningjing had already gone far. Han Yunqi did not have time to see Tang Li. She wanted to find Deacon Jin, but found that she did not know where to find him. She immediately asked someone to invite the fifth patriarch over. In this Myriad Merchant Hall, other than Ningjing, only the fifth patriarch could make her feel completely at ease. The moment the fifth patriarch came over, he told her about Gu and Muling in the casino. Although the fifth patriarch did not know that Ning Cheng had forged the letter, Han Yunqi could guess the whole story. Your Highness, Master Ning must have misunderstood you by placing Muling under house arrest. Now that the misunderstanding has been cleared, this subordinate will send someone to bring Miss Ling over, the fifth patriarch said respectfully. Han Yunqi nodded. Who knew that not long after, a servant came to report that Deacon Jean would not release her? Preposterous. This subordinate will go over personally. The fifth patriarch was about to leave in a huff, but Han Yunqi stopped him. She asked, why did Ning Cheng place Muling under house arrest at Deacon Jin's place? Although Deacon Jin's indenture contract was still with Myriad Merchant Hall and he was still the 1,000 Gold Pavilion's deacon, Deacon Jin's East Valley Bank was within his own sphere of influence and was independent of Myriad Merchant Hall. If Ning Cheng wanted to place Muling under house arrest, it would be within Myriad Merchant Hall's sphere of influence. How could he let Deacon Jean bring her to the East Valley Bank? The fifth patriarch answered, Your Highness, Deacon Jean and Master Ning are master and servant, and also friends. This subordinate does not know about this matter. This subordinate will call Uncle Cheng over. Uncle Cheng should know. A complicated look flitted across Han Yunqi's eyes. She asked calmly, where is Deacon Jin's indenture contract? Myriad Merchant Hall servants are all under unified management. The indenture contracts are all stored in the warehouse. However, Deacon Jean is a little special. Master Ning has always kept the indenture contract for himself. This subordinate also does not know where it is. As the fifth patriarch spoke, he added, however, Master Ning may not carry it with him at all times. Uncle Cheng may know. This subordinate will hurry and find him. There's no need. Han Yunqi stopped him. Take me to the East Valley Bank. The fifth patriarch was absolutely obedient to Han Yunqi. Without asking any questions, he pushed her out of the door and down a small path. At this moment, a black shadow flitted across the rooftop, following them. Who else could this black shadow be but Su Donglin? His Highness had instructed him to keep an eye on the princess. The moment the princess left Myriad Merchant Hall, he was to report her whereabouts to him. Han Yunqi was going to the East Valley Bank. At this moment, Uncle Chang and Deacon Jean were drinking tea in the back courtyard of the bank. Don't even think about the casino business. I dare to guarantee that Myriad Merchant Hall cannot save the casino. Even Golden Wing Palace and East Origin Hall do not have that ability. Uncle Chang said sternly. Deacon Jean had a rough grasp of the casino situation. Based on his judgment, the casino business in three-way black market would not be able to flourish for at least 2 years. The people of Golden Wing Palace had exposed all the cheating methods in the casino. Who would still dare to come and play? Deacon Jean drank the finest tea without saying a word. Uncle Chang continued, now that the princess has returned, your agreement with Ning Chang is also void. Don't blame me for not reminding you. You won't be able to get back that limitless gold card you lost to Gu. Deacon Jean, you're definitely going to suffer a loss this time. Actually, there was no need for Uncle Chang to remind him. From the moment Deacon Jean found out about Han Yunqi's identity, he knew that his deal with Ning Chang was definitely going to suffer a loss. He remained silent as Uncle Chang analyzed the situation. Sigh, so be it. It's just a mere limitless gold card. The East Valley Bank can naturally afford to suffer a loss. It's just that. Uncle Chang waited for a while, but didn't continue. Deacon Jean brushed his fine bangs aside, revealing the scar on his forehead. He asked, just what? When did Uncle Chang treat me like an outsider? Uncle Chang sighed softly. It's just that you put Han Yunqi's younger sister under house arrest, and offended her at the entrance of Myriad Merchant Hall. I'm afraid that she won't let the matter of you putting Mu Linger under house arrest go so easily. Deacon Jean was extremely puzzled. What exactly was Uncle Chang's motive for making a special trip here to sow discord between him and Han Yunqi again and again? Ning Chang was loyal and devoted to Western Qin. Now that something had happened to him, what was Uncle Chang trying to do? Deacon Jean weighed the situation for a while, then said mildly, Uncle Chang, since you're treating me like an outsider, please go back. Uncle Chang wasn't angry. Instead, he laughed. Jean Z, Uncle Chang likes your personality. Straightforward. Deacon Jean didn't say anything. He was usually a man of few words. Uncle Chang leaned over and whispered something to Deacon Jean. In a few sentences, he explained the deal clearly. Uncle Chang wanted Deacon Jean to use Mu Linger as a bargaining chip to get a huge sum of money from Myriad Merchant Hall. Once the deal was done, Uncle Chang would return the indenture agreement to him. Deacon Jean was a smart person. He immediately realized that Uncle Chang wanted to make things difficult for Han Yunqi while Ning Chang was away. Based on Han Yunqi's conflict with Ning Jing at the entrance of the main hall today, coupled with Uncle Chang's attitude, Deacon Jean more or less guessed that Han Yunqi, this princess, hadn't truly gained a firm foothold in the D clan. Ning Chang wasn't around, so there might not be anyone in the D clan who was convinced by Han Yunqi. Deacon Jean was only curious about these matters. He was most concerned about his indenture agreement. How is it? Is my indenture agreement in Uncle Chang's hands? Deacon Jean asked. Uncle Chang immediately took out a handwritten copy. Take a look. Are there any discrepancies? Deacon Jin's calm expression changed slightly when he saw that thing. He had personally written the indenture agreement and signed it. He knew every word on it, even the position of his signature. However, a handwritten copy couldn't prove that his indenture agreement was in Uncle Chang's hands. Given Uncle Chang's status, it wasn't impossible for him to see this thing. Deacon Jean said indifferently, Uncle Chang, I can promise you anything if you can give me the indenture agreement. However, I want to see the real thing. A complicated look flitted across Uncle Chang's eyes. All right, I'll bring it to you tomorrow morning. I'm sure Han Yunqi will soon know that Mu Linger is here. You have to be prepared. Of course, Deacon Jean said indifferently. Uncle Chang hurriedly left through the back door. Almost at the same time, Fifth Elder pushed Han Yunqi into the guest hall. Master, Myriad Merchant Hall's Fifth Elder is here to see you. He even brought a woman in a wheelchair with him. This subordinate isn't sure of her identity, the attendant answered truthfully. Deacon Jean was slightly taken aback, but he quickly regained his senses. He said in a low voice, watch Mu Linger carefully. Don't let her run around. She definitely can't come to the guest hall. The attendant obeyed and left. Deacon Jean then quickly walked to the guest hall. Along the way, he kept his head down, a shadow in his eyes. No one knew what he was thinking about. Although Deacon Jean was somewhat fearful of Han Yunqi's identity, he still maintained his usual calm, even a little cold. Your Highness, what brings you here? He asked indifferently. He waved his hand to summon the attendant to serve tea. I heard that you weren't willing to release my sister, so I had no choice but to come personally. Han Yunqi was very direct. For the indenture agreement? What did Ning Cheng promise you? Why did he allow you to bring her here? Han Yunqi asked. Ning Cheng promised me back then. Do you acknowledge it, princess? Deacon Jean retorted. I don't acknowledge it. I'm just asking, Han Yunqi said with a smile. Then there's no need for me to say. Deacon Jean did not stand on ceremony. If not for Uncle Cheng's reminder, he really would not have thought that he still had Mu Ling to negotiate with Han Yunqi. It was still unknown whether Uncle Cheng could produce the original indenture agreement. Moreover, even if Uncle Cheng secretly gave him the indenture agreement, so what if he destroyed it? Myriad Merchant Hall would never admit it. Most people in the circle knew that he was Myriad Merchant Hall's slave. If he wanted to leave, how could he leave secretly? He had to leave openly. Although this woman in front of him had not gained a firm foothold in the D clan, he would rather bet his chips on this woman than on a villain like Uncle Cheng. No need to say any more. Just tell me what you want in order for you to release my sister. Han Yunqi's expression was relaxed, as if this was not a very difficult matter. It had to be said that Han Yunqi's attitude made even the usually calm Deacon Jean somewhat flustered. However, he quickly calmed down. Your Highness, my condition is very simple. Return the indenture agreement to me. One hand over the goods, and the other hand over the person. Deacon Jean said, then added, oh right, you have to return the limitless gold card that Mu Ling cheated me out of. Han Yunqi frowned. Deacon Jean, I heard that you wanted to give the entire East Valley Bank to Ning Cheng in exchange for an indenture agreement? Ning Cheng didn't agree to it? Heh, so that girl Mu Ling is still very valuable. Deacon Jean smiled faintly. Han Yunqi also smiled. No matter how valuable that girl Ling is, she's not as valuable as you, Deacon Jean. How about this, you release Mu Ling and give me the East Valley Bank. I'll give the order that your indenture agreement is void. As for whatever agreement you have with Ning Cheng, it'll also be void. How about it? When these words were spoken, not to mention Deacon Jean, even the fifth elder was stunned. If this was not an exorbitant demand, what was it? Where did her confidence come from? Chapter 908. Mu Linger was in Deacon Jin's hands. Where did Han Yunqi get the confidence to make such harsh demands? Deacon Jin chuckled and said mockingly, Your Royal Highness, you really know how to do business. Han Yunqi sighed helplessly. If I knew how to do business, I wouldn't make such a losing deal with you. I'm also doing this for Ning Cheng's sake. Fifth Elder was already stunned. Deacon Jin couldn't help but be angry. How was Han Yunqi asking for an exorbitant price? She was simply insulting him. Your Royal Highness, what qualifications do you have to negotiate with me? Deacon Jin pulled a long face. Your indenture contract, of course. Han Yunqi looked at him blankly. Deacon Jin, could it be that you're not satisfied with this princess's conditions? Fifth Elder couldn't figure out if Her Royal Highness was pretending to be stupid or if she really didn't understand the situation. Deacon Jin also didn't know if Han Yunqi was pretending to be stupid or if she really was stupid. He said bluntly, my indenture contract and 2 limitless gold cards. Otherwise, there's no need to talk about it. As soon as he said this, Fifth Elder sucked in a cold breath. Her Royal Highness was asking for an exorbitant price, but this Deacon Jin wasn't inferior either. Han Yunqi frowned and looked at Deacon Jin incredulously. Deacon Jin was indifferent and didn't budge an inch. Uncle Cheng wanted him to extort more than just 2 limitless gold cards. Deacon Jin felt that his conditions were quite generous. Although he wanted 2 limitless gold cards, in reality, he only earned 1. The one in Mu Linger's hands originally belonged to him. The room was silent. Deacon Jin and Han Yunqi's eyes met, silently competing with each other. The atmosphere gradually became tense. Deacon Jin, what if I say I can't do it? Han Yunqi spoke first. Then I'm sorry, I can't fulfill your request. Please leave. Deacon Jin said coldly. Han Yunqi nodded and smiled. Okay. Then I'll change my condition. I'd like to hear the details. Deacon Jin still gave Han Yunqi a chance. Cooperating with Han Yunqi was much easier than cooperating with Uncle Cheng. Then listen carefully. I'll only say it once. Han Yunqi became serious. I'm all ears, Deacon Jin said. Immediately hand over Mu Linger and make an inventory of all the accounts of the East Valley Private Bank. Hand them over to Fifth Elder, and this princess will spare your life. Otherwise, you won't be able to see the sun tomorrow. When Han Yunqi said this, Deacon Jin and Fifth Elder were stunned. Han Yunqi continued expressionlessly, as for your slave contract, I'm very sorry, but you won't have any bargaining chips to redeem it in this lifetime. Suddenly, Deacon Jean jumped up from his seat and said angrily, Han Yunchi, what nonsense are you talking about? If you think this princess is talking in her sleep, you don't have to take it seriously. After Han Yunchi finished speaking, she turned to look at Fifth Elder. Let's go. Fifth Elder finally returned to his senses and hurriedly came over to push the wheelchair. Deacon Jean was about to stop him when he suddenly felt some pain in his calf. Alarmed, he touched the area of pain and found a golden needle. Deacon Jean was in disbelief. He never thought that Han Yunchi would be so despicable. If he had known that she would use such a despicable method, he definitely would have taken precautions. He understood that this woman didn't know any martial arts and only knew how to use hidden weapons to poison people. Her hidden weapons were hidden in her sleeves. Han Yunchi, you actually used poison. You're despicable. Deacon Jean angrily rebuked. Despicable? Han Yunchi's lips curled into a cold smile. She ignored him and was pushed out of the door by Fifth Elder. The pain in his calf became more and more severe. Deacon Jean angrily warned, Han Yunchi, if I don't see the sun tomorrow, Mu Linger won't see the sun tomorrow either. Finally, the anger that Han Yunchi had been suppressing in her heart all this time suddenly erupted. She said coldly, why don't you try? Don't forget that this is the three-way black market. As soon as she finished speaking, a group of guards suddenly rushed in from outside and surrounded Deacon Jean. Go in and search. Han Yunchi said coldly. Deacon Jean wanted to stop them, but Han Yunchi shot out several poisonous needles. Although Deacon Jean could withstand them, he calmed down and said unhappily, Han Yunchi, I can agree to your conditions. Everything can be discussed in detail. It had to be said that Uncle Cheng's instigation had made him realize that Mu Linger was an excellent bargaining chip, but Han Yunchi's poisonous needles had utterly defeated him. Myriad Merchant Hall, Golden Wing Hall, and East Origin Hall were all part of the three-way black market. Although Amir East Valley Bank was rich and imposing, it still couldn't be ranked. What's more, he was still a slave of Myriad Merchant Hall. Even if he won today, Han Yunchi deliberately made things difficult for him, so he wouldn't have a good life. Even if he had Mu Linger in his hands, did he really want to fight Han Yunchi to the point of losing his life? He wasn't clear about the relationship between Han Yunchi and Mu Linger, but judging from Han Yunchi's vicious, despicable, and shameless behavior, she might really sacrifice Mu Linger in exchange for the East Valley Bank. Deacon Jean didn't want to die in a foreign land at such a young age before he had even obtained his freedom. Han Yunchi waved a hand, indicating for the guards to withdraw. Actually, these were only her personal guards who'd accompanied her on this trip. They hadn't come prepared. Originally, she was only curious as to why Ning Cheng would release Mu Linger to the East Valley Bank, so she personally came to test Deacon Jean. She didn't expect Deacon Jean to be someone who refused a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. She sneered in her heart. When the chips were equal, she had never lost any negotiation except for that one time when she faced Bai Yanqing. Actually, everyone's chips were equal. As long as Deacon Jean insisted on not releasing her and used Mu Linger to threaten her, she wouldn't be able to hold on for long. She should be thankful that Deacon Jean wasn't that sly old fox Bai Yanqing after all. Once the guards withdrew, Han Yunchi coldly asked, where is she? If she wanted to discuss in detail, she had to first see Mu Linger and confirm that she was fine. From her point of view, Deacon Jean wasn't a good person. If he dared to hurt Linger in the slightest, she would definitely make his legs suffer so much that he wished he was dead. Help me detoxify the poison first. Deacon Jean requested. Han Yunchi narrowed her eyes. Are you sure you still want to talk nonsense with me? Han Yunchi, there should be a limit to how much you can take advantage of a burning house. You're a woman, so don't use such despicable methods. Deacon Jean was genuinely dissatisfied with being tricked and casually complained. Han Yunchi originally didn't want to waste her breath, but when she heard this, she was enraged. She angrily retorted, Deacon Jean, explain to me clearly. How am I taking advantage of a burning house? You were the one who directly suggested exchanging the East Valley Bank for your indenture agreement. Ning Cheng thought it was too little, so I added an additional condition for you to release Mu Linger. How is that not a limit? Han Yunchi sneered. Also, what do you mean by despicable? You kidnapped my little sister, and I asked you to release her, but you refused to release her. If you want to talk about despicable, then you're the one who's despicable first. You were poisoned by me, but that's because you're fine. Deacon Jean, you're a dignified man, yet you're holding a little girl hostage, and you're still talking to me about whether you're despicable or not. Is there any meaning to this? I haven't even scolded you, yet you're scolding me? Do you have any shame? Deacon Jean was speechless, while Fifth Elder's heartbeat sped up. Both of them had long heard of this woman's reputation, but this was their first time seeing her in person. It really was an eye-opener. Deacon Jean, I'm telling you one last time. Hand over Mulinger, settle the accounts of the East Valley Bank, and hand them over to Fifth Elder. Then I'll give you the antidote. As for your indenture agreement, don't even think about it. We have nothing to discuss. Han Yunqi kindly reminded him again. There's still more than 2 hours before daybreak. Even if Deacon Jean was 100 times unwilling, he still had to admit defeat. Someone, bring Mulinger over. He reluctantly ordered. Very quickly, Mulinger was brought over by an attendant. Han Yunqi originally thought that Mulinger would have a pitiful look on her face, but who knew that this lass would be so well? She couldn't tell that she had been kidnapped at all. The moment Mulinger saw Han Yunqi, her large, bright eyes were like searchlights, especially bright. However, the next moment, she realized that Han Yunqi was sitting in a wheelchair. Han Yunqi, what happened to you? She cried out in alarm and rushed over. I'm fine. Han Yunqi didn't want to talk too much here. Mulinger hurriedly squatted down and carefully examined her legs. She only needed to smell the medicine that Han Yunqi had applied to know that Han Yunqi's legs were broken. What happened? Who did it? Mulinger asked angrily. Han Yunqi frowned as she looked at her. Her heart felt warm. It was rare for this lass to be so concerned about her. It's fine. Let's talk about it when we get back, she said indifferently. Fifth Elder wanted to push Han Yunqi, but Mulinger beat him to it. She was full of questions, but she also knew that this wasn't the place to talk. Where's my antidote? Deacon Jean couldn't help but remind her. Settle the accounts and bring it over to Fifth Elder. I'll give it to you. Han Yunqi didn't even turn her head. Deacon Jean clenched his fists and stood there for a long time. Just as Han Yunqi was about to leave, he said coldly, Han Yunqi, don't you want to know why Ning Cheng handed this lass over to me? Han Yunqi finally turned her head. Then tell me. Deacon Jean was about to state his conditions when Han Yunqi said, if you don't tell me now, I'll immediately go back and find your indenture contract and sell it to Gu. Deacon Jean had fought with Gu in the casino. If his indenture contract fell into Gu's hands, would he still have a good life? Deacon Jean gnashed his teeth in hatred and had the urge to bite someone. Han Yunqi turned her head. Linger, let's go. Ning Cheng has designs on Medicine City's Mu family. Han Yunqi, don't think too much. Ning Cheng isn't here, so you may not have full authority over the D clan. Deacon Jean finished speaking and turned to enter the room. Mulinger narrowed her eyes. Belatedly, she realized that Deacon Jean had lied to her. He even said that he couldn't take her out of three-way black market, but he could take her to East Valley Private Bank and guarantee her safety. So it was all a lie. She had thought that he was quite kind these past few days and even wondered if she should return that limitless gold card to him. She didn't expect him to be jackals of the same lair as Ning Cheng. Too much. Mulinger suddenly rushed over to the guest hall. Deacon Jin's back was facing outside. He was gloomy and was about to turn around when Mulinger was already behind him. She suddenly kicked his butt. Deacon Jean didn't expect Mulinger to return. He stumbled forward 2 steps and almost fell. Despicable, shameless liar. Just you wait, I'll make you pay the price. Mulinger cursed angrily and turned to run. Deacon Jean hugged his butt and turned back to look. His face was completely black. Chapter 909. When Mulinger ran back, Fifth Elder was persuading Han Yunqi. Princess, don't listen to his instigation. Fifth Elder, since it was Deacon Jean who instigated it, then don't mention this matter again when we return, Han Yunqi instructed calmly. Mulinger didn't quite understand and didn't dare to ask on the spot. After returning to Myriad Merchant Hall and Fifth Elder left, Mulinger hurriedly told her about how Ning Cheng had forged the secret letter and how he had used Deacon Jean to trap Gu. Han Yunqi already knew what was going on and only nodded. Han Yunqi, did Ning Cheng capture Bai Yanqing? Where is he? You mustn't let Ning Cheng off. That guy is too evil. Everyone in the world thinks that he's the most loyal to Western Qin. I didn't expect him to do such a thing. Han Yunqi, why are you here? How did your leg get injured? Han Yunqi, Ning Cheng, Han Yunqi interrupted Mulinger and told her about the hostage situation. Mulinger was stunned and looked at her in disbelief for a long time. Finally, she muttered, Han Yunqi, you're really daring. Do you really love Long Fei that much? If it wasn't for deep love, how could she give in when it came to national enmity? How could she be willing to give each other a chance? Han Yunqi didn't say anything. She thought to herself that even if she hadn't transmigrated, even if she was a real Western Qin princess, she would still love Long Fei and would still be so brave. Mulinger was surprised and suddenly felt sad. She thought that if Qi brother knew the truth, he would definitely be very sad. How much did she love Qi brother to feel sad for him? Ling, I've sent people to Black Tower to find Gu. Don't run around before he comes back. Be careful, Han Yunqi instructed seriously. Okay. Mu Ling nodded. She stood for a while. She had so many things to say, but she didn't know how to say them. The two of them were silent. She felt awkward and said, Han Yunqi, it's late. I'll help you wash up and change your medicine. You should sleep early. Chi brother might be back when we wake up. Han Yunqi was wondering when Mu Linger cut her off. She immediately refused. No need, I have servant girls in my rooms. I still have something to do and I won't sleep so early. You should go and rest first. Han Yunqi wanted to visit Tang Li alone. In about 2 hours, Deacon Jean should deliver the East Valley Bank's account book. She couldn't relax until she saw the account book. Although the East Valley Bank's wealth couldn't compare to the D clan's, it couldn't be underestimated. With this sum of money, Myriad Merchant Hall would have more confidence in dealing with the gambling house and the auction house. She thought that after this sum of money entered the account book, the other elders of Myriad Merchant Hall would more or less change their views of her. Only when the elders changed their views of her would she be able to start meddling in the gambling house and the auction house. Her agreement with Long Feiyi was only 10 days. On the first day, she coincidentally took over the East Valley Bank. Han Yunqi began to suspect that perhaps she and Long Feiyi wouldn't have to be apart for 10 days. If it were any other day, Mu Ling would definitely find an excuse to pester Han Yunqi. However, she still had an important matter to attend to tonight. She would soon bid farewell to Han Yunqi. Mu Ling didn't return to her room to rest. Instead, she went straight to East Origin Hall's auction house. A limitless gold card didn't have an upper limit, but it didn't mean that it didn't have an expiration date. When the cardholder lost everything and couldn't pay off the debt, the limitless gold card would be cancelled by the bank. Mu Ling wanted to spend money like dirt before Deacon Jean lost everything. She wanted to let him have a taste of his own medicine. How dare he join forces with Ning Cheng to put her under house arrest? While Mu Ling was spending money like crazy in East Origin Hall's auction house, Han Yunqi was already imprisoned in Tang Li's cell. Tang Li suspiciously sized up Han Yunqi and didn't say anything for a long time. Han Yunqi allowed him to size her up. She calmly pushed the wheel of her cell towards Tang Li and said, "If you keep looking, I'll tell your brother." You. Tang Li licked his lips. After a while, he asked in a low voice, "What's wrong with your leg?" "It's broken. It's almost healed." Han Yunqi was still quite comforted. At least the first thing Tang Li said when he saw her was to ask about her leg. Tang Li said, "Oh." After a moment of silence, he said, "Han Yunqi, don't you hate my brother?" The Grand Elder had told Ning Jing that when Ning Chang was in trouble, Tang Li was listening at the side. He couldn't be sure of anything else, but he was sure that his brother had very willfully taken this woman to his side to protect her. Why would I hate him? Han Yunqi rolled her eyes at him. You are the princess of Western Qin and he is the East Qin crown prince. Don't you hate him? Tang Li asked again. If he doesn't hate me, why would I hate him? Han Yunqi asked again. If he doesn't hate you, can you not hate him? Tang Li suddenly smiled. It's really simple. It's very simple. Han Yunqi asked back, do you think it's not simple? A bitter look flashed in Tang Li's eyes. He changed the topic. Han Yunqi, then why are you here now? How could the D clan let you come here? If I said it, would you believe me? Han Yunqi asked. If my brother believes you, how could I not believe you? Tang Li asked back. Han Yunqi also became serious. Tang Li, then do you hate me? Tang Li immediately shook his head, but he quickly nodded again. Only, when he saw Han Yunqi frown, he shook his head again. Han Yunqi pushed him, you're so hesitant. Are you still a man? Tang Li asked back, why would I hate you? My brother doesn't hate you, so it's useless for me to hate you. Han Yunqi laughed mockingly, I'm really blessed by Long Feiyi. Tang Li rolled his eyes, where's my brother? He knows I'm here. Why didn't he come to save me? What's going on with you two? Han Yunqi still did not answer and asked back, Tang Li, do you hate Ning Jing? Unexpectedly, Tang Li suddenly became impatient. He waved his hand and motioned for Han Yunqi to leave. Don't beat around the bush with me. If you don't let me go, then leave. Please help me pass a message to my brother and ask him to quickly come and get me out. Han Yunqi was about to speak when Tang Li stopped her. I'm telling you, next time you come here, don't mention the 2 words Ning Jing to me. Otherwise, don't come here. Han Yunqi's eyes flashed with suspicion, and she said lightly, Tang Li, you want to be alone, don't you? I don't. Tang Li suddenly became angry and denied it angrily. Han Yunqi was stunned at first, then she burst out laughing. She was puzzled. Tang Li's attitude just now showed that he did not have any deep hatred for her. Why would Tang Li resent Ning Jing, the daughter of the D clan, when she was a Western Qin princess? She was not sure about other things, but she was very sure that the hatred of the Eastern and Western Qin family was not that strong in Tang Li's heart. Otherwise, Tang Li would not have been so talkative with her after knowing her background. As long as Tang Li did not reject Ning Jing's background, then Ning Jing could still be fought for, right? Although Ning Jing had told her not to mention their relationship in front of Tang Li, Han Yunqi still could not help it. She could not bear to see a stubborn woman like Ning Jing hiding her love and fighting alone. Love was a very heavy thing, and a person often could not bear it. Seeing Han Yunqi smile, Tang Li flew into a rage out of humiliation. Han Yunqi, are you leaving or not? You don't want to be alone. Won't you be bored if I leave? This prison cell is too quiet. Won't you be bored? Han Yunqi asked with a smile. Tang Li was furious and said angrily, go away. I want to be alone. You want to be alone? Han Yunqi played dumb and asked curiously, Jing? Finally, Tang Li flew into a rage and did not answer Han Yunqi anymore. Instead, he pushed her out of the prison cell and slammed the door shut. He wanted to be alone. Seriously, enough. Han Yunqi was about to go back in when she saw the prison guard running over. Princess, Fifth Elder is waiting outside. He said that he has an urgent matter and wants to see you, the prison guard hurriedly reported. Han Yunqi temporarily ignored Tang Li and hurriedly went out. She saw Fifth Elder holding a bunch of keys in both hands and waiting respectfully outside the door. Your Highness, all the accounts of East Valley Private Bank have been sorted out and handed over to the subordinate. This is the key to East Valley Private Bank's treasury. East Valley Private Bank has not raised any debts or expanded into other businesses. As of tonight, the total amount of debt that has been loaned out is 56,330,000 taels, Fifth Elder reported truthfully. Han Yunqi sighed with emotion. The most profitable business in the world was indeed the business of making money. Although they had only lent out 56,330,000 taels, the interest of 56,330,000 taels was calculated daily, and the interest was extremely high. Where's Deacon Jean? Han Yunqi asked. These were sent over by him. He didn't come, Fifth Elder replied. Was it inconvenient for him to come over because of his leg injury, or was he afraid that seeing her would make him even more depressed? Han Yunqi very faithfully took out the antidote and handed it to Fifth Elder. She instructed, tomorrow at noon, summon First Elder and the others. I'll have a meal with everyone and learn more about the casino and the auction house. Fifth Elder respectfully accepted the order and left. Han Yunqi did not return to the prison. She thought that it was better not to force Tang Li and let him be alone. Ning Jing did not like her meddling, so she could not meddle too much. Seeing that it was almost dawn, Han Yunqi finally felt tired. She stretched and motioned for a maid to send her back to her room. She had to hurry up and tidy herself up and get some sleep. Otherwise, she would not have the energy to battle with the Elders' Council tomorrow. Han Yunqi was clearly very tired, but when she returned to her room, she could not fall asleep. She ordered a maid to prepare a hot soup. Since she could not sleep, she decided to take a bath and calm down to think about the casino and the auction house. What was the purpose of Golden Wing Palace? As far as she knew, Golden Wing Palace had been trading medicinal herbs all these years. There was not much conflict with Myriad Merchant Hall. Why did they have to compete with Myriad Merchant Hall so openly? After the maids prepared the hot soup, Han Yunqi dismissed them. She could already stand. If she did not care about the consequences, she could actually walk a few steps. It was not as inconvenient to move as before. She took off her clothes and carefully sat in the bathtub. Her feet were propped up on the edge of the tub so that they would not touch the water. The water was covered with pink Chinese roses. A faint fragrance rose in spirals with the steam and filled the air. Han Yunqi relaxed and did not have time to think about anything. But at this moment, a familiar voice came from behind her. Chapter 9:10. Han Yunqi, if I remember correctly, it's time for you to change your bandages today. Upon hearing this familiar voice, Han Yunqi hastily turned around to see Long Feiyi standing behind her. She didn't know when, but his stern face was filled with displeasure. Han Yunqi looked at the door, then at the window. She discovered that the doors and windows were tightly shut. How did this guy get in? One had to know that as her inner strength increased, so did her acuity. She was no longer as oblivious to the slightest movements in her surroundings as she was before. When Long Feiyi was imparting his inner strength to her, he was also constantly training her ability to detect danger in her surroundings. She learned this kind of task very quickly. When did you get in? Han Yunqi asked. Long Feiyi moved a chair over, took out the ointment, and sat beside the bathtub. He pulled on her well-proportioned, fair, and beautiful legs. Han Yunqi originally wanted to ask more, but when his large, rough hand held her smooth and delicate calf, she unconsciously stiffened. She only felt a tremor rapidly travel from her calf to the top of her head, causing her scalp to tremble. They had even touched more intimately before, but even now, she still couldn't withstand his careless touch. Han Yunqi thought, Long Feiyi was a poison, an incurable poison. Just like the perplexing butterfly illusion. She had it, but she couldn't break it. She was already beyond cure. There was no saving her. Long Feiyi lowered his head and lowered his eyes. With a serious expression, he helped her cut the gauze. Han Yunqi had questions to ask, but she couldn't bear to break his silence. However, Long Feiyi quickly glanced over. If you're tired, then take a nap. I'll call you when I'm done. Han Yunqi's sleepiness had long been chased away by Long Feiyi. She asked suspiciously, You've been waiting for me for a long time, right? The doors and windows were all fine. She hadn't heard any movement when she had just entered. The only possibility was that this guy had already snuck into her room and only came out now. Yes. Long Feiyi admitted generously. You just? Han Yunqi was slightly angry. Why didn't you come out earlier? In other words, if he had come out earlier, she wouldn't have taken a bath. She would have seen everything. Han Yunqi said implicitly, but Long Feiyi answered directly, I've already seen it. Han Yunqi didn't know how early Long Feiyi was referring to. She knew that the earliest time they met was when they were at the hot spring pool near the battlefield. She didn't want to discuss this with Long Feiyi at this time, so she immediately changed the topic. Aren't you going to see Chu Tianyin? Why haven't you left? I'm leaving tomorrow. I remembered that you didn't apply medicine on your leg, so I came over to take a look, Long Feiyi replied. Oh. Han Yunqi glanced at him and was a little happy. I heard that you've taken over the Eastern Valley Bank? Long Feiyi asked. You're well informed. Han Yunqi smiled helplessly. Presumably, there were still many people in Myriad Merchant Hall who didn't know about this. Do you know what Golden Wing Hall is trying to do? Han Yunqi asked. Do you want me to help you? Long Feiyi asked. He could tell that if Han Yunqi wanted to control the D clan, she had to take over Myriad Merchant Hall first. Han Yunqi nodded without hesitation. If there was someone to help her, why wouldn't she? Pride and arrogance were unnecessary in front of Long Feiyi. Long Feiyi couldn't help but laugh. He thought that this woman would reject him without hesitation. Although he was laughing, Long Feiyi still rejected her heartlessly. 10 days is the limit. I won't help you. He had already given in on this matter. How could he push Han Yunqi to the Western Qin camp? He couldn't do it. Stingy. Han Yunqi also laughed. Can you help with anything else? Long Feiyi said seriously. Anything else? Han Yunqi quickly asked, What is it? Long Fei couldn't help but laugh out loud. I'll carry you up. Han Yunqi was stunned. Her face immediately reddened, and she couldn't speak for a long time. Long Feiyi chuckled to himself. Although Han Yunqi declined again and again, Long Feiyi still picked her up horizontally. Fortunately, she grabbed a bath towel to wrap around her body and cover her face. Long Feiyi placed her on the bed. Han Yunqi quickly tidied herself up and wrapped herself in her nightgown. Long Feiyi was well behaved. He didn't tease her anymore. Instead, he leaned against the bed and looked at her with a smile. Compared to her magnificent appearance, he preferred her helpless, panicked, and shy look. He was the only one who could see it. Han Yunqi glanced at Long Feiyi, but her heart ached for him. She sat down on the bed and made room for him. It's almost dawn. Take a nap before you leave. She didn't know that he didn't plan to leave at all. She said seriously, You have to run around again tomorrow. Take the time to rest. Long Feiyi lay down. Han Yunqi came over, held his arm, and snuggled up to him. Even she didn't know when she had become so dependent on this man. She thought that they would only see each other after 10 days. She didn't expect to be able to lean on him again after just one day. It was great. Originally, Long Fei had wanted to continue teaching Han Yunqi internal energy and even instruct her in acupuncture techniques. But when he saw her so lovey-dovey and lovey-dovey, he didn't bring up the subject of martial arts. He said calmly, Go to sleep. I'll leave when it's dawn. Han Yunqi snuggled in his arms. Feeling his familiar scent, she felt especially satisfied and safe. However, just as she was about to fall asleep, she suddenly remembered something. She looked up abruptly. Long Feiyi, why do you think Tang Li hates Ningjing so much? Maybe, Long Feiyi said calmly. Tang Li had mentioned it to him when they were in Medical City. If he remembered correctly, it should be Ningjing who hated Tang Li, you can tell too. Han Yunqi sat up excitedly. How could Long Feiyi pay attention to this kind of thing? How could he tell? If he hadn't met Han Yunqi, he probably wouldn't have been able to handle his own relationship matters. Relationships were actually a kind of instinct. When you met the right person, this kind of instinct would be stimulated. If you didn't meet the right person, you probably wouldn't understand it for the rest of your life. Before Long Feiyi could answer, Han Yunqi started to analyze seriously. Tang Li doesn't hate me at all. He has no reason to hate Ning Jing so much. He was drugged. Who wouldn't bear a grudge? Long Feiyi retorted. Obviously, he didn't fully understand the hatred Han Yunqi mentioned. Han Yunqi misunderstood as well. If that's the case, then it's rather hateful. Han Yunqi muttered to herself. After a while, she said seriously, Long Feiyi, I keep feeling that Tang Li and Ning Jing are a little interested. This time, Long Feiyi answered clearly, yes. You think so too? Han Yunqi was a little excited. It's not what I think. Tang Li told me before, Long Feiyi replied. Han Yunqi was shocked. What did you say? Tang Li said that he likes Ning Jing. Unfortunately, Ning Jing still doesn't want to have children. Long Feiyi was talking about Tang Li's original words in Medical City. Why didn't you say so earlier? Han Yunqi was surprised and angry. She hurriedly wanted to get off the bed. What are you doing? If you move your leg again, you won't be able to recover, Long Feiyi reprimanded unhappily. I'm going to find Ning Jing. No, I'm going to find Tang Li. I have something very important to tell him. Han Yunqi said and opened her arms, wanting Long Feiyi to carry her down the bed. Long Feiyi glanced at her unhappily. Han Yunqi became anxious and put her arms around his neck. Long Feiyi, this concerns your brother's marriage. Hurry up. Long Feiyi almost took advantage of the situation and pushed her down, but he still carried her off the bed, put her in the wheelchair, and threw her clothes to change. Long Feiyi, Ning Jing likes Tang Li. Ning Jing likes Tang Li. Han Yunqi completely ignored Long Feiyi's dark face. She hurriedly put on her clothes and pushed the wheelchair out, leaving Long Feiyi stunned. He had waited in the cell for a whole night, and this woman just left like that? However, for Tang Li's sake, Long Feiyi could only let Han Yunqi go. Han Yunqi didn't know why she was so excited. She asked the maid to push her out. In the hazy sky, she left behind a figure that was like the wind. When Han Yunqi arrived at the prison, Tang Li was lying on a pile of straw and staring at the skylight in a daze. This was not the first time that he couldn't sleep until dawn. After being questioned by Han Yunqi, he couldn't sleep even more. When Han Yunqi was still far away, Tang Li heard the noise. He didn't expect Han Yunqi to come over. He only thought that it was the elders who secretly came to punish him. So, when Han Yunqi had already ordered someone to open the prison door and dismissed the maid, Tang Li still didn't look back. Han Yunqi looked at Tang Li's thin figure and couldn't help but laugh. "Io, are you so haggard because of Yiling?" Tang Li immediately turned around and looked at her. He was very surprised. "It's you? Tang Li, is this the kind of person who wants to be alone?" Han Yunqi said with a smile. Tang Li rolled his eyes at her and turned back to face the wall. He closed his eyes and ignored her. "How does it feel to want to be alone?" Han Yunqi pushed the wheelchair into the prison. Tang Li couldn't be provoked, and he couldn't stand Han Yunqi using the word quiet to provoke him. He immediately stood up. "I'll say it for the last time. I want to be alone." "Do you want to be alone?" he explained impatiently. "An explanation is a cover-up," Han Yunqi said seriously. Before Tang Li could refute, she continued seriously, "A cover-up is definitely interesting." "Han Yunqi, what do you want? It's not even dawn yet. Aren't you bored? If you're bored, go find my brother if you can." Tang Li couldn't bear it anymore. Han Yunqi smiled but didn't say anything. Tang Li said again, "Han Yunqi, let me tell you. If it weren't for my brother, I would have thrown you out long ago. What do you want? If you have something to say it quickly." He had promised Long Feiyi that if Han Yunqi didn't hate Long Feiyi, he would help control the Tang sect's power. He really didn't expect Han Yunqi to be so free and easy. He also didn't expect Han Yunqi to be so capable. She could mix around with Long Feiyi and openly come to the D clan's important place, Myriad Merchant Hall. Why was it so easy for this woman to do these things? Why was it so difficult for him and Ning Jing? Han Yunqi cleared her throat and said seriously, "All right, since you've already chased me out, I'll be straightforward. Tang Li, I'm here to tell you a secret. Do you want to hear it?" A trace of suspicion flitted across Tang Li's eyes, but he looked indifferent. "Say it or not." Ning Jing's secret, Han Yunqi tempted. Chapter 9-11. The word Ning Jing was like a curse to Tang Li, especially when it came from Han Yunqi's mouth. However, Tang Li did not get a headache when he heard it. Instead, his heart ached. It throbbed painfully and was extremely uncomfortable, but he had no choice but to listen to it. He could not ignore it. Tang Li pretended to cough lightly and replied impatiently, Han Yunqi, if you have something to say, just say it. Don't hold it in. I have a condition. Han Yunqi said with a chuckle. No way. Tang Li turned his head away. His thin and handsome face was full of arrogance. Call me sister-in-law, and I'll tell you. It's a big secret. Han Yunqi continued to tempt him. Tang Li had thought that Han Yunqi would come up with some tricks. He did not expect it to be so simple. However, even if it was that simple, he could not do it. Tang Li pursed his lips and did not say anything. Han Yunqi was full of interest and waited for him patiently. Their eyes met for a while. Tang Li finally awkwardly avoided Han Yunqi's gaze. Are you going to call me that? Han Yunqi asked. Tang Li did not say anything, nor did he refuse. Han Yunqi's lips curled into a contemptuous smile. If you don't want to call me that, then so be it. Goodbye. She pushed the wheel and prepared to leave, but Tang Li immediately cried out, wait a minute. Han Yunqi was overjoyed. She stopped and waited. However, Tang Li said, Han Yunqi, if it's about Ningjing, I'll have to trouble you to stop bothering me. Han Yunqi felt stifled. She immediately turned around and scolded, Tang Li, are you still a man? You don't even dare to say that you like a woman? Are you a coward? Let me tell you, Ningjing has agreed to cooperate with me. She will help me take control of Myriad Merchant Hall and facilitate the cooperation between the D clan and the Long Fei Yi. We will definitely work together to deal with Bai Yanqing and find out the true reason behind the civil war in the Great Qin Empire. As Han Yunqi spoke, she turned around and approached Tang Li. Do you know why Ningjing did this? Because like me, she hoped that the civil war back then was a misunderstanding. She hoped that there was no hatred between East and West Qin. Because she wants to fight for a chance to love you. Tang Li was dumbfounded. Han Yunqi continued scolding, she's a woman. She has a sense of shame and self-respect. It's understandable that she doesn't dare to say that she likes you. But you're a man, don't you even have this bit of courage? If you like someone, will it kill you to say it out loud? The secret I want to tell you is that Ningjing loves you very, very much. Han Yunqi said loudly. Tang Li was still stunned and didn't say anything for a long time. If Han Yunqi's leg wasn't injured, she would definitely have kicked him hard. If you don't want to know this secret, then pretend that I didn't say anything. Goodbye. Han Yunqi was really about to leave when Tang Li suddenly shouted, sister-in-law. Han Yunqi was about to go deaf from all the shouting. Fortunately, she had previously informed Ningjing to bribe the jailers in the cell. When she came over, the jailers all retreated far away. Otherwise, Tang Li's sister-in-law would definitely betray all of them. Han Yunqi covered her painful ears and ignored him. Tang Li was extremely agitated and quickly pulled her wheelchair. Sister-in-law, what did you just say? Han Yunqi looked up at him. Tang Li, what did you call me? Tang Li was about to cry. Sister-in-law, I'm begging you. Have mercy on me. Ningjing, what did she say? Han Yunqi was amused, angry and distressed. Ningjing loves you. She loves you very, very much. She told sister-in-law herself. Tang Li was really about to cry. His eyes were filled with tears. Really? Han Yunqi smiled helplessly. Sister-in-law would cheat anyone but you. It's true. I want to see her. Tang Li rushed out of the door like a madman. Han Yunqi let him do as he pleased. Tang Li really did run out of the cell. However, once he reached the dungeon door, he was stopped by a group of archers. He could only retreat. At this moment, he realized that although Han Yunqi could walk freely in Myriad Merchant Hall, she didn't have complete control over it. The group of archers at the door was not only to prevent him from escaping, but also to prevent Han Yunqi from secretly taking him away. You can't go out, but Ningjing can come in. I don't know if she's willing to see you. Han Yunqi was telling the truth. Sister-in-law, tell Ningjing, tell her. Tang Li thought for a moment. Tell her that the pear blossom in the storm has no heart, but I have a heart. Tell her to come here. I have something to tell her. All right, I'll think about it, Han Yunqi said mildly. Sister-in-law. Tang Li begged. Han Yunqi couldn't help but laugh. It had been a long time since she heard him call her sister-in-law in such a pleading tone. Tang Li, leave this to sister-in-law. Even if I have to lie to her, I'll help you trick her here. If you have anything to say, you can tell her yourself, Han Yunqi said seriously. Hurry, hurry. Tang Li couldn't wait. Han Yunqi left immediately. By the time she reached the outside of the prison, it was already dawn. Fifth Elder had sent people to look for her everywhere, and they just happened to find her here. Your Highness, the elders are already waiting in the main hall, the maidservant answered truthfully. So early? Han Yunqi was suspicious. She had no idea that last night, Fifth Elder had told the other elders about Han Yunqi swallowing up the East Valley Private Bank. All of them were stunned by the news, especially the head elder, who had called for a meeting early in the morning to discuss the matter. Myriad Merchant Hall was the D-clan source of wealth, so it was essentially a place where money spoke. Han Yunqi had only used a single night to earn a private bank for Myriad Merchant Hall without any cost. Even if the elders were dissatisfied, they had to admit that they were a little more convinced. The situation at the auction house and the casino was getting worse and worse. When they were at their wits' end, they naturally wanted to hear what Han Yunqi had to say. Tell them I'm not feeling well and that I'll be there later. Tell them to get busy first. Han Yunqi secretly stuffed an ingot of gold into the maidservant's hands and asked, "Is Ning Jing there too?" "Miss Jing hasn't arrived yet. First Elder has already sent someone to invite her. Miss Jing came back from the casino very late last night, so she's probably still resting." The maidservant answered in detail after receiving the ingot of gold. Han Yunqi immediately found another maidservant to push her to Ning Jing. No matter how important the matter was, nothing was more important than her younger brother Tang Li's marriage. Let the elders wait. Just as Han Yunqi was about to hurry to find Ning Jing had already woken up. Her 4-month pregnant belly wasn't obvious yet, and it didn't make her movements clumsy, but she was still very careful in private. In the past, she rarely ate breakfast when she was busy, but now, no matter how busy she was, she had to eat her fill. Despite First Elder's urging, she still stayed in her room and slowly ate her breakfast before leaving. Who knew that just as Ning Jing was about to leave the courtyard, Mu Ling suddenly rushed in and bumped into her. Both of them screamed, but Ning Jing's screams were undoubtedly much louder than Mu Ling's. Ning Jing was knocked to the ground and fell on her butt. Mu Ling didn't fall, but her nose hurt. Her nose was sticky and seemed to be bleeding. Ning Jing supported herself with one hand on the ground and the other hand hurriedly clutched her stomach. Her face was deathly pale and she was so scared that her heart almost stopped. She was in a daze and didn't dare to look down. "Ning Jing, are you all right?" "I didn't do it on purpose. I was being chased and I came to find my older sister," Mu Ling said as she helped Ning Jing up. But before she could help her up, she was stunned. She saw a pool of blood flowing out from under Ning Jing's body. Although Mu Ling was a virgin, but she was a pharmacist and she knew this kind of common sense. She was so scared that she opened her mouth and wanted to scream. Luckily, Ning Jing covered her mouth in time. Ning Jing's voice was so cold that it was scary. She said in a low voice, "Mu Ling, save my child, otherwise, I'll make you pay with your life." Mu Ling's hands were cold. Only then did she realize how big of a trouble she had caused. "Ning Jing, don't be angry. You let go of me, then I can save you." Mu Ling was so scared that her lips and teeth were trembling. She wasn't afraid of death, but she was afraid that this disaster couldn't be saved. Ning Jing covered her mouth with one hand and grabbed her arm tightly with the other. Her fingernails tore through her clothes and pierced into her flesh. She tightened her grip and didn't let go. She was even more scared than Mu Ling. Mu Ling was so scared that she didn't even notice the pain in her arm. She said anxiously, "Ning Jing, calm down. You don't have time. Call the maidservant to send you into the room. I'll go get the medicine immediately. Believe me, I can. I can concoct a good medicine that will protect your child." Mu Ling didn't have any confidence at all. Without diagnosing the specific situation, how could she prescribe the right medicine? How could she concoct the medicine? However, as a pharmacist, no matter how flustered she was, she still had the most basic professionalism. She had to try her best to calm the patient down. A good mood was a good medicine. "Mu Ling, send me in. Don't let anyone know that I'm pregnant, including the servants," Ning Jing said coldly. Mu Ling was shocked and blurted out, "You're pregnant with Tang Li's child?" When Mu Ling said this, she felt that she was stupid. If she wasn't pregnant with Tang Li's child, why would Ning Jing be so secretive? "Shut your mouth," Ning Jing rebuked angrily. Mu Ling didn't dare to delay and said in a low voice, "Ning Jing, you better not stand up. Otherwise, the child will be in danger. Bear with it, I'll carry you in." Mu Ling wasn't even as tall as Ning Jing, and she was much thinner than Ning Jing. How could she carry Ning Jing? However, this little girl's explosive strength was astonishing. She gritted her teeth and carried Ning Jing into the room, step by step, and laid her flat on the bed. After she carefully checked Ning Jing's pulse, she finally breathed a sigh of relief. "Ning Jing, the child can be saved. You must lie down. I'll go find the doctor outside and prescribe some medicine to prevent miscarriage." Judging from Ning Jing's pulse, she judged that it was not hopeless. However, she was not a doctor in this field, so she didn't dare to be careless. Ningjing's tense nerves finally relaxed a little. She didn't dare to move, let alone get up. After Mu Ling poured some water for her, she immediately went to find the doctor and get the medicine. However, just as she reached the door, she saw Han Yunqi being pushed over by a maidservant. Han Yunqi was staring at the pool of blood on the ground with a suspicious look on her face. When she saw Mu Ling she was even more puzzled. Ling why are you here? Why are you in such a hurry? When the overly nervous Mu Ling saw her savior, she almost burst into tears. She gave Han Yunqi a look with teary eyes. Han Yunqi immediately understood and dismissed the maidservant. Mu Ling rushed over, her voice choked with sobs. Sister, I'm in trouble. Jing almost had a miscarriage. I bumped into her. I'll go find the doctor and get the medicine right away. Help me look after her. Don't let anything happen to her. Han Yunqi was stunned. Miscarriage? Mu Ling nodded vigorously. She finally couldn't hold back her tears. I didn't do it on purpose. Chapter 9:12. As soon as Han Yunqi heard the word miscarriage and looked at the pool of blood on the ground, she immediately shouted, Don't cry. Take me in, hurry up. Mu Ling was frightened. I have to go, hurry up. Han Yunqi shouted angrily. Mu Ling didn't have time to explain and hurriedly pushed Han Yunqi in. Ningjing didn't expect Han Yunqi to come over. She asked Mu Ling angrily, Where's the medicine? Where's the doctor? Mu Ling was yelled at by these two women. She held back her tears and said, Sister, I've checked her pulse. Ningjing's baby can be saved. She urgently needs to take the medicine to prevent miscarriage. I said to find a doctor to be on the safe side. What kind of medicine do you need? Han Yunqi asked. Mu Ling quickly listed a few medicinal herbs. Han Yunqi directly took them out from her medical bag. To be exact, she took them out from the detoxification system. The medicinal herbs that Mu Ling listed were very common. She still had them in stock in her detoxification system. They were just used to make antidotes. She didn't expect that there would be a time when she would use them to make medicine to prevent miscarriage. Mu Ling and Ningjing were very curious, but they didn't have time to ask. After Mu Ling confirmed that the medicinal herbs were correct, she immediately went to make the medicine herself. After Han Yunqi confirmed that Ningjing was fine for the time being, she hurriedly went out to get rid of the pool of blood in the courtyard. After she came back, Ningjing stared at the ceiling in a daze. She didn't know what to think. Han Yunqi sighed. She didn't know how she would tell Tang Li if something happened to Ningjing today. Han Yunqi sat for a long time without saying anything. Ningjing opened her eyes and looked over. Han Yunqi glanced at her and said nothing. Han Yunqi, you must think I'm ridiculous, right? Ningjing asked with a bitter smile. Han Yunqi suddenly said coldly, You're despicable. How could you hide such a big thing from Tang Li? Ningjing's eyes flashed with bitterness. She didn't want to explain anything. She turned her head and didn't say anything. Han Yunqi was also silent. Very soon. There were many things that needed to be told to her personally by Tang Li. After Mu Ling brought the decoction, Han Yunqi went out to find a doctor. When she brought the doctor over, Ningjing had already taken the medicine and fallen asleep. The doctor examined her, looked at Mu Ling's prescription, and added some medicine. He said that although the child was saved, Ningjing had to stay in bed for a month. After sending the doctor away, Mu Ling finally broke down and cried softly. Sister, I didn't do it on purpose. I really didn't do it on purpose. Han Yunqi then realized that Mu Ling had called her sister. Looking at Mu Ling's teary eyes, Han Yunqi felt helpless. What's the use of apologizing to me? Sister, boo-hoo! Mu Ling cried even louder. Han Yunqi immediately muffled her mouth. Can't you be quiet? Ningjing needs to rest. Mu Ling didn't dare to make a sound. She widened her teary eyes and looked pitiful. She didn't even realize that she had called Han Yunqi sister several times. Han Yunqi asked calmly, What are you doing here? Mu Ling then remembered something else. Sister, I got into trouble. Han Yunqi was shocked. What is it? I was hunted down by Deacon Jean, Mu Ling said timidly. Han Yunqi was even more shocked. What exactly happened? Only then did Mu Ling tell him the whole story. Last night, she had gone to East Origin Hall's auction house to squander money. In one night, she'd spent 300 to 200 million taels to buy up all the items from last night's auction. She had just arrived at Myriad Merchant Hall's entrance this morning when she bumped into Deacon Jean. Deacon Jean wanted to kill her. Fortunately, she reacted quickly and escaped in time. Deacon Jean didn't dare to chase after her. It turned out that Deacon Jean had handed over the East Valley Private Bank to Fifth Elder last night and was penniless. The news had only spread this morning and the private bank didn't have time to block his limitless gold card. Simply put, because of her extravagant spending last night, the originally penniless Deacon Jean now owed a debt of more than 200 million. 200 million was just a night's worth of gambling for the Deacon Jean of the past. But to the current Deacon Jean, it was an astronomical figure. Even if he wanted to pay with his life still belonged to Myriad Merchant Hall. Han Yunqi was originally a little angry, but when she heard Mu Linger's explanation, she almost laughed out loud. She didn't expect Mu Linger to be so good at cheating others. No wonder Deacon Jean wanted to kill her. Deacon Jean owes a buttload of debt? Han Yunqi muttered to herself, seeming to have thought of something. Sister, I didn't expect things to blow up so big. Mu Linger had only wanted to take revenge on Deacon Jean. She didn't expect to cause Deacon Jean so much trouble. Although a private bank that issued limitless gold cards wasn't like an underground bank like the East Valley Private Bank, their methods of forcing people to repay their debts were still very frightening. From now on, Deacon Jean's days wouldn't be easy. Sister, why don't I sell off the things I bid for at a cheap price? Let him repay as much as he can. Mu Linger was ultimately kind-hearted. No need. Let him be anxious for a few days. Han Yunqi said calmly. She already had a plan in mind. Deacon Jean was from the Wintercrow tribe and should know the Wintercrow language. Perhaps this guy would be the key to her turning the tables in Myriad Merchant Hall. Linger, stay here and take care of Ningjing. You must keep this a secret, understand? Otherwise, Ningjing will never forgive you, Han Yunqi said seriously. Mu Linger nodded vigorously. Only then did Han Yunqi leave, reassured. She pondered how to get Tang Li out of the prison cell to take a look at Ningjing as she walked towards the conference hall. The elders in the conference hall were already impatient from waiting. Uncle Chang was also present. He hadn't even found Deacon Jin's indenture contract before Han Yunqi beat him to it. He had to admit that he admired this woman's ability. It was a pity that this woman's heart was with Long Fei Yi. Otherwise, she would definitely be able to lead the D clan in their great cause of reviving Western Qin. Although Uncle Chang didn't gain any benefits from the Deacon Jean incident, he still concealed himself without batting an eyelid. He knew that Han Yunqi wouldn't be able to settle the disturbance at the auction and casino no matter what. As soon as Han Yunqi arrived, all of the elders rose to their feet. After making their salutations, the head elder said, "Someone come, go see if Miss Jing's almost here. Tell her that the princess is already waiting." "No need. I sent her to the casino," Han Yunqi said calmly. First Elder wanted to ask more, but Han Yunqi beat him to it. "First Elder, tell us about the situation at the auction." "Yes." First Elder stood up and reported the situation in detail. The disturbance at the auction stemmed from a fake item. The item was indeed fake, but it wasn't forged by the auction. Instead, a mole had planted the fake item and exchanged it for the real item. The business of the auction house was most afraid of fake goods. The customers took advantage of this and demanded a high compensation. "Then compensate them. Give them as much as they want," Han Yunqi said. "We've already promised to compensate them tenfold, but that customer not only wants tenfold compensation, he also wants the real item." First Elder was in a difficult position. "Princess, that mole still hasn't shown himself, and the whereabouts of the real item are unknown. What are the origins of this guest?" Han Yunqi asked. "He's a wealthy merchant from Western Zhou who trades in tea leaves," First Elder replied. "He has a group of companions who block the entrance of the auction every day. If they don't leave, the auction will never be able to open again." Han Yunqi nodded and asked, "What's the situation at the casino?" "Uncle Chang is handling everything at the casino." As soon as First Elder finished speaking, Uncle Chang hurriedly stepped forward and reported the situation at the casino. The situation at the casino was 100 times worse than at the auction. Ever since someone exposed the casino's dealer for cheating, the gamblers occupied the casino and refused to leave. Several gamblers demanded the casino compensate them for the money they lost over the past 3 years, plus interest. This was still considered a small matter. A few gamblers didn't want any compensation at all. Last night, they brought a group of servants to smash up the casino, declaring that they would smash it up for as long as Myriad Merchant Hall's casino was open. "Servants?" Han Yunqi snorted. "A group of servants can smash up the casino? Are the guards useless? Are they raised for nothing?" Uncle Chang hurriedly explained, "Your Highness, at this juncture, if we use force, we'll be even more in the wrong. That's why I didn't stop you. I've already punished the dealer, but the Golden Wing Palace has publicized all their tricks. Not to mention our casino, even East Origin Hall may not be able to continue operating. Other than those troublemaking gamblers, most of the gamblers in the black market are dead. A cold sneer flashed across Uncle Cheng's eyes. He asked anxiously, Your Highness, the casino and auction are myriad merchant halls' most profitable places. What should we do now? The military camp sent a letter the day before yesterday, asking Myriad Merchant Hall to transfer silver to prepare military supplies for the winter. Also, a few spies from the Northernly Chamber of Commerce have come asking for silver. Now that the Northernly Chamber of Commerce is electing a new president, we need a lot of silver to smooth things over. After Uncle Cheng finished speaking, everyone fell silent. They all looked at Han Yunqi, waiting for her to come up with a plan. The Myriad Merchant Hall's Elders Guild had seen all kinds of storms, and they weren't to be trifled with. However, at this critical juncture, they all had to be cautious in the face of such a troublesome storm. No one dared to take the risk. After all, if this storm wasn't dealt with properly, Myriad Merchant Hall's source of income would be cut off, and the military supplies on the battlefield would be replenished. If it were any other time, they could still replenish their supplies. However, at this critical juncture, they needed to have enough funds to deal with a war that could break out at any time. Han Yunqi was silent for a long time, then finally made a shocking decision. She said, Pass down the order to close the casino. No. Uncle Cheng was the first to stand up. After that, other than the fifth elder, the other four elders also stood up. Although they didn't say anything, their thoughts were the same as Uncle Cheng's. Then do you have a better idea? Han Yunqi retorted. Your Highness, please forgive the subordinate for speaking bluntly. Your idea can't be called an idea. Once the casino closes, we'll lose one of our sources of income. Now that we're short of silver everywhere, let's just say. Before Uncle Cheng could finish, Han Yunqi cut him off coldly. Uncle Cheng, I'm very sorry. The casino source of income has already been cut off. It had to be said that Han Yunqi was speaking the truth. If the casino continued to operate, it wouldn't be able to make a profit. No one even gambles in East Origin Hall's casino, let alone here. Han Yunqi retorted, Won't it cost to continue operating? Have you calculated how much it costs to operate those large casinos for a day? Don't we have to pay for the servants, the dealers, and the venue? Even the lights inside cost money. The entire place was silent. No one could refute her words, but no one was convinced either. Even the fifth elder, who obeyed Han Yunqi's every order, couldn't bear to close the casino. Rather than wasting resources, why don't we take advantage of these opportunities before others discover them? Han Yunqi asked again. No one understood. Who knew that Han Yunqi would say, after closing the three-way black markets casino, we'll open a few large casinos under our own names in the nearby county. Gambling is a thing that addicts can never get rid of. Chapter 9:13. Close down the three-way black markets casino, conceal their identities outside the three-way black market, and open another casino. Han Yunqi's move was called, No Construction Without Destruction. Hearing Han Yunqi's explanation, everyone felt enlightened. This was a very simple method, nothing more than a little trick in the business world. But why couldn't their brains wrap around it? Why couldn't they figure it out? The three-way black markets casino had already been ruined by Golden Wing Palace. Even if they tried to salvage the situation, with Golden Wing Palace's attitude, they would definitely continue to look for trouble. Any business was afraid of being found trouble. Rather than wasting time and money here, they might as well change their position. Han Yunqi was right. People who were addicted to gambling would never be able to quit. In other words, they would never have to worry about not having business. Now that the three-way black markets casino was not trusted, those gamblers might be even more anxious than the casino owners, unable to find a suitable place to gamble. If they could seize the opportunity and find a suitable place to reopen the casino, it would definitely attract a lot of gamblers. This way, the casino's income would not be cut off. All the elders looked at each other. Although some of them had a grudge against Han Yunqi, they could not help but approve of her idea. Uncle Cheng rubbed his hands and thought for a moment before asking seriously, But Your Highness, now that the dealer's tricks have been exposed, how are we going to continue playing? Han Yunqi bluntly reprimanded, Uncle Cheng, you're wrong. Any business must pay attention to the word credibility. Without credibility, no matter how big the business is, it will still be exaggerated. Thousand Gold Hall is an example. The moment she said this, First Elder hurriedly explained, Your Highness, the dealer's rules are not only in our casino, all the casinos in the world are like this. If we don't do this, how are we going to make such a high profit? Han Yunqi smiled. Then let's do the opposite. First Elder wanted to explain, but Uncle Cheng hurriedly said, What brilliant idea does Your Highness have? This subordinate is all ears. If casinos did not follow these unspoken rules, they would not be able to make such high profits. Without such high profits, they might as well do other business. Uncle Chang admired Han Yunqi's idea of opening another casino. He was worried that he couldn't refute her. Now, he found his weakness. He'd like to see what kind of brilliant moves Han Yunqi could come up with. Who knew that Han Yunqi would say something shocking again? She said, "We only provide the venue and services, not the host. If the gamblers wanted to play host and dared to play host, let them do it." The casino adopted a membership system, and the members had to go through a strict asset inspection. Those with a net worth of less than 300 million would be rejected. If the loser reneged on the bet, the casino would be responsible for collecting the debt. Therefore, the casino would take a 30% commission from the winner and waive all the fees for the loser. However, the participants would have to pay a membership fee every year. Also, we'll hire new dealers, all of them new faces. They'll be in charge of supervising every game. If anyone is caught cheating, they'll have to pay 10 times the compensation and be banished from the casino forever. Han Yunqi had only given a rough idea, but it left everyone gaping. After all, for thousands of years in Cloud Realm continent, the casino had always been the host. No one had ever played like this before. It wasn't common for the dealers to cheat in every game, so the casinos would make losses and profits every day. Only after a month's worth of transactions would they make a profit. But Han Yunqi's idea was to make money every day. No matter who won or lost, someone would always win. As long as someone won, the casino would get a cut. Moreover, Han Yunqi had limited the qualifications of the participants. Anyone with a net worth of 300 million or more was a rich man, so the chips for each round wouldn't be low. Everyone present was an old hand in business, so Han Yunqi only needed to give them a rough idea before they could sniff out all sorts of business opportunities from this model. The profits from this model weren't limited to just commission and membership fees. There were many other things that could be done, such as custom-made private rooms, servants, and even restaurants and inns. Good, good, good. Your Royal Highness's idea is excellent. The head elder couldn't help praising. The other elders all nodded their heads in agreement. They couldn't wait to discuss all sorts of ways to make money. Uncle Chang's gaze was complicated. He had no choice but to give in. Still, he wasn't willing to give up and threw out another difficult problem. Your Royal Highness's idea is good, but what? Uncle Chang, feel free to speak. Han Yunqi's attitude was excellent, but her eyes were filled with suspicion. She was sharp to begin with, and with all sorts of people making things difficult for her over the years, she sharply sensed Uncle Chang's hostility after a few words from Uncle Chang. When it came to business matters, the elders should be more sensitive than Uncle Chang. However, while they were all immersed in joy, Uncle Chang was very clear-headed and repeatedly asked her a few key questions. Why was that? Moreover, if she remembered correctly, Uncle Chang was the closest person to Ning Chang and knew almost everything about Ning Chang. He must know the truth about the hostage situation. When she was confronting Ning Jing and the head elder, where was Uncle Chang? Why didn't he speak up? What was his attitude? It's just that, with a net worth of 300 million, the number of gamblers attracted is small. The overall profits won't be as much as before, Uncle Chang said seriously. At his words, the head elder hastened to add, "Don't worry about that. As long as we open another casino and lower the bar, we'll still attract plenty of gamblers. Her Royal Highness's idea is that we don't have to play host to the casinos. Uncle Chang, three-way black markets casinos are the wind vane of Cloud Realm Continent's casinos. Whatever winds blow here, there's bound to be big waves outside. I'm sure news of the cheating has already spread to all the casinos by now. Now that this bowl of rice isn't tasty, how can we recover our past profits so quickly? We have to strike while the iron's hot and seize the time to open a casino. If we use the cheating scandal to make a fuss, we'll definitely get the upper hand." Uncle Chang pursed his lips, unable to retort. Even the head elder had spoken against him, so what else could he say? Leaving aside everything else, Han Yunqi had already won the Council of Elders' hearts over the matter of the casinos. Han Yunqi's eyes flashed craftily. "Uncle Chang, I'll leave the matter of opening another casino to you. You have to seize the time. If you mess it up, it'll be hard for you to explain yourself to Ning Chang when he comes back." Uncle Chang's heart gave a lurch as he glanced at Han Yunqi, then averted his eyes in panic. Did Han Yunqi see something? Was she warning him? He had his eyes on the casinos to begin with, but Han Yunqi just had to give him full responsibility. What else could he do? In the end, he'd end up tormenting himself. Uncle Chang realized in hindsight that he'd underestimated Han Yunqi too much. Now he could only place his hopes on the auction house. Han Yunqi had given him the casinos, but she couldn't just leave the other elders to the side and give him the auction house as well. As long as the auction house wasn't given to him, he didn't need to be responsible for it, and he could play some tricks. Yes, I'll do my best. Uncle Cheng endured for the time being. Then you should hurry and find a place. Han Yunqi's tone was still very polite. Uncle Cheng originally wanted to stay and listen to how Han Yunqi would deal with the storm in the auction house. Who knew that Han Yunqi would send him away like this? He could only withdraw first and come back to inquire about the auction house in detail. The storm in the auction house was that the real item had been replaced with a fake by a trader. The buyer not only demanded compensation, but also demanded the return of the real item. Elders, what do you think about this matter? Han Yunqi asked. Your Highness, I suspect that the buyer colluded with the trader. We've already proposed a compensation of 10 times the auction price. Generally speaking, customers won't refuse, second elder said seriously. This subordinate has the same opinion. This seller is most likely from the Golden Wing Palace. Your Highness, this incident in the casinos and the auction house is too strange. It's just a coincidence. Third elder immediately echoed. Han Yunqi had long suspected it, but she couldn't figure it out. Why would Golden Wing Palace target us? Harming others without benefiting themselves? We've always minded our own business with Golden Wing Palace. There's no conflict between us, first elder said helplessly. He had already discussed this matter with the other elders more than once. Han Yunqi was very decisive. Since we don't know the reason, then we'll give them a taste of their own medicine. Tie up the buyer and interrogate him properly. Absolutely not. First elder immediately stopped her. Now the whole three-way black market is talking about this matter. Tying someone up at this juncture will inevitably provoke criticism. Selling a fake item in the auction house is already a bad thing. If we tie up the buyer, who will dare to do business with us in the future? Tie him up, then send out specialized people to look for him with great fanfare. Throw the dirty water back at Golden Wing Palace. Han Yunqi said coldly, you must always remember that history books are written by people, and public opinion is spoken by people. History books are like this, the winner takes all, and public opinion is like this, whoever has the loudest voice is in the right. Once something happened in Thousand Gold Hall, Golden Wing Palace immediately hit us when we're down. It's clearly a provocation. I don't believe that no one suspects them. Using black to fight black, this was Han Yunqi's principle all along. It had to be said that everyone had a new understanding of Han Yunqi. They didn't expect her to be not only smart, but also ruthless and decisive. If this woman was born a man, she must be extraordinary. However, even if she was a woman, she wouldn't lose to a man. Perhaps she really had the ability and courage to truly lead the Western Qin camp. As for the auction house business, First Elder doesn't need to worry. I have ways to attract buyers. Seeing him hesitate, Han Yunqi continued, I'm sure everyone has seen the East Valley Private Bank's accounts by now. That's enough money to support Myriad Merchant Hall for a year and a half. It's more than enough to pay for the D-clan soldiers and all sorts of expenses. Someone's already provoked us to our doorstep. Are you willing to swallow your anger? Where's Cloud Realm Trade Consortium's domineering air? Her words roused the fighting spirits of all the elders. Fifth elder was the first to step forward. We'll listen to everything your highness says. Afraid that fifth elder would win Han Yunqi's favor and replace him, head elder didn't hesitate to step forward. Your highness is wise and brilliant. If Han Yunqi knew that Golden Wing Hall was one of Gu Qixiao's businesses, how would she react if she found out that Gu Qixiao had tricked Myriad Merchant Hall just to avenge her? Han Yunqi had fourth elder and third elder assist Uncle Cheng, while head elder and second elder took charge of the auction house. Fifth elder remained behind to coordinate the various affairs of Myriad Merchant Hall. After the meeting adjourned, she instructed fifth elder in a low voice, find those gamblers who caused a ruckus at the gambling house and tie them up as well. I have to make them give up Golden Wing Palace. After that, Han Yunqi hurried to Ning Jing's courtyard. She was vexed. Just how was she supposed to get Tang Li out of jail? Chapter 914. When Han Yunqi arrived at Ning Jing's room, she saw Mu Ling'er concentrating on making medicine in the study. What are you doing? Han Yunqi was puzzled. I'm trying to find a way to mix these two prescriptions so that Ning Jing can better absorb the effect of the medicine and reduce the effect of the medicine on the fetus. Mu Ling'er said seriously. How is she? Han Yunqi asked in a low voice. She didn't say anything for most of the day. I didn't dare to talk to her. Mu Ling'er said and asked in a low voice, Sister, are Ning Jing and Tang Li really in love with each other? If they don't love each other, how can they have a baby? Han Yunqi asked. Mu Ling'er nodded bitterly. Sister, is there any news about Qi brother? He Lu is only half a day away from here. Why hasn't he come back yet? If Mu Ling'er didn't ask, Han Yunqi would have been so busy that she forgot about it. He should be back. Didn't you find him? Although she and Long Fei Yi came back in advance, the people of the D clan and Long Fei Ye's shadow guard were still tracking Bai Yuqiao's whereabouts near Yu Mountain. If Gu went there the day after the explosion of He Lu, he should have met those guards. Qi brother will definitely go there, Mu Ling'er said. Suddenly, she was shocked and grabbed Han Yunqi's hand. Sister, will Qi brother be okay? Han Yunqi was also a little worried. She hurriedly ordered the attendant to ask the fifth elder to send more people to look for him. Do you want to go in with me and see her? Han Yunqi asked. Mu Ling'er was still full of guilt and didn't dare to face Ning Jing. Sister, you go in by yourself. I just saw her. Han Yunqi didn't feel embarrassed. When they were far away, she looked back and said with a smile, Girl, you call me sister so smoothly. Then she smiled proudly and gently brushed her bangs. She turned and walked into the room, leaving Mu Ling'er stunned. Mu Ling'er realized that she had called her sister, for 2 days. As soon as Han Yunqi came in, Ning Jing immediately asked about the casino and the auction. Why don't you ask me about Tang Li? Han Yunqi asked. Don't mention him. You should know that the auction and casino are your only chance. Although Ning Jing's body recovered slowly, her spirit recovered well. Han Yunqi told Ning Jing the details of today's meeting. Ning Jing was silent for a long time and finally gave a thumbs up. Han Yunqi, you're good. It was a pity that Mu Ling'er didn't come in. Otherwise, Mu Ling'er would definitely cry. Although she didn't know how Qi brother planned to scheme against Ning Chang, she knew that the master of Golden Wing Palace was Qi brother. Of course, if Gu was in the three-way black market at this time, he might have given Golden Wing Palace to Han Yunqi. What was the point of fighting? Could Golden Wing Palace be the property of the Feng clan? Ning Jing asked suspiciously. No, if the Feng clan had Golden Wing Palace, Junie Xie wouldn't be short of soldiers' pay, Han Yunqi said seriously. One of the many measures that the Northern Dynasty's emperors took to control Junie Xie was to withhold all the soldiers' pay. The 30,000 horses that had arrived, the 30,000 horses that were on the way, and the 30,000 horses that were about to set off were all served with real money. I suspect that your brother might not have fallen into Bai Yanqing's hands. Otherwise, Bai Yanqing and Junie Xie wouldn't have waited for death. They would have threatened him long ago. Han Yunqi analyzed seriously. Then where can Bai Yuqiao take my brother? Not only did Ning Jing not understand, but Han Yunqi also didn't understand. How could they have thought of the gap between Bai Yanqing and Junie Xie? They also didn't know to what extent Bai Yuqiao would worsen this master-disciple relationship. Han Yunqi and Ning Jing chatted like this. Ning Jing didn't want to talk about Tang Li, so Han Yunqi didn't mention it either. She always hoped that Tang Li could personally tell Ning Jing his sincerity instead of her. Moreover, if she told the truth now, if Ning Jing didn't listen to her and insisted on going to prison, then she would be the one to blame. As they chatted, Han Yunqi casually asked, Ning Jing, what do you think of Uncle Chang? He is my father's attendant. After my father passed away, he has been following my brother. In the D clan, he is the only one who dares to talk back to my brother. Han Yunqi asked tentatively, then, about our cooperation. Before she could finish speaking, Ning Jing interrupted, You can't tell anyone, especially him. Han Yunqi, can the people who follow my brother not be as stubborn as him? If you want to control the D clan, then you have to control Uncle Chang first. Han Yunqi nodded, knowing what to do. You rest for now. I will go out and put on a show later. Just say that you suddenly fainted at the casino and overworked yourself. The doctor said that you need to rest in bed for a while, Han Yunqi instructed in a low voice. I will make the proper arrangements for the doctor and maidservants. You can rest assured and rest well. I will send someone to inform you about the casino and the auction house. Help me keep an eye on them to avoid any mistakes. Don't worry. I will keep an eye on them, Ning Jing said seriously. After Han Yunqi left, she followed the plan and said that Ning Jing was sick and had to rest in bed. She bribed a maidservant from Fifth Elder's side and found a doctor from outside. Finally, she managed to hide this matter. After she was done, she hurriedly asked the maidservant to push her into the prison cell. From afar, she could hear Tang Li shouting, Sister-in-law? Sister-in-law. Are you calling my soul? Han Yunqi asked unhappily. Where is Ning Jing? Tang Li had waited for a long time. He thought that Han Yunqi would bring Ning Jing over. Han Yunqi did not intend to say it. However, after hesitating for a long time, she finally felt that Ning Jing's pregnancy and almost miscarriage was a serious matter. As her husband, Tang Li had the right and obligation to know. Anyway, Tang Li would know sooner or later. If she did not say it now, she would definitely be blamed by Tang Li in the future. Han Yunqi hooked her finger at Tang Li. Come here. I will tell you another secret. Unlike last time, this time Tang Li rushed over and obediently bent down to listen. However, when Han Yunqi told him the truth, he was no longer obedient. He rushed out of the prison without saying a word. Fortunately, Han Yunqi had the foresight to lock the door when she just came in. Not to mention that there were archers outside. Tang Li could not rush out. Even if he rushed out, what could he do? He and Ning Jing were now like her and Long Feiyi. They could not make their relationship public. The D clan still did not know the relationship between the Tang sect and Long Feiyi. However, the Pearflower Storm Needles had completely broken the relationship between the D clan and the Tang sect. If the news of Ning Jing's pregnancy spread, the one who would suffer a big loss would be Ning Jing. Tang Li could only be controlled by the D clan. Tang Li kicked the prison door with all his strength. Recalling what Ning Jing had said in Medical City, he simply wanted to slap himself. How could he be so stupid and careless? At that time, he had put Ning Jing under house arrest. For 3 days and 3 nights, he had only given her water and 3 meals. He had even hung her hands up to torture her and threatened to hang her to the city gate. At that time, Ning Jing had smiled and said to him, Ali, I am pregnant. Ning Jing, you silly woman. Aren't you silly? Tang Li's heart was broken. Although he was scolding her, his tone was doting, as if Ning Jing was standing right in front of him. He finally understood why the stubborn Ning Jing had compromised at that time. It turned out that it was for the sake of the child in her womb. He should be so glad that Ning Jing had compromised. Otherwise, he would not have needed to hang her to the city gate. He only needed to starve her for 3 days and 3 nights, and she would not be able to hold on. His child would be gone. Bam! With a loud bang, Tang Li fiercely punched the prison door. After Tang Li vented his anger, Han Yunqi said indifferently, Tang Li, if you want to save your child's life, you better calm down. Otherwise, the mother and son will be in big trouble. Don't forget where you are. Actually, there was no need for Han Yunqi to say anything. Tang Li should be more aware of the consequences. He clenched his fist tightly and pressed it against the prison door. He calmed down and endured. After a while, Tang Li said, Sister-in-law, is there really no way to get me out of here? There is a way, but it is too risky at this juncture. Han Yunqi was in a difficult position. Unexpectedly, Tang Li was very decisive. Then help me take care of the mother and son. He was silent for a while, then continued, Sister-in-law, let me know when you want to deal with Bai Yanqing. No matter what, I want to bring Ning Jing back to the Tang sect. Han Yunqi suddenly felt that Tang Li had grown up. She agreed without hesitation. Okay, let your brother arrange it for you. Han Yunqi finally remembered Long Feiyi. She had abandoned him before dawn and had been busy until now. The sky was almost dark. Long Feiyi should be on his way to Western Zhou now. Tang Li's child would have to call Long Feiyi uncle. Long Feiyi was going to be an uncle? Han Yunqi suddenly felt very incredulous. She recalled that Long Feiyi had asked her several times before. She couldn't help but feel bitter. Children. How could it be so easy to get them just because they wanted them? If they met on the battlefield one day, what would happen to the children? Han Yunqi shook her head, unwilling to think about it. She felt that she should hurry up and deal with the casino and the auction. If she could settle these 2 matters before Long Feiyi returned and take over Myriad Merchant Hall's Elder Council, they could settle the score with Bai Yanqing as soon as possible. Gu Beiyue's situation and the little things' whereabouts were still unknown. She really missed them. Thus, after Han Yunqi left the prison cell, she covered her face with a veil and had a servant girl push her to the auction. Just as she left through the front door, Long Feiyi happened to sneak in from behind. Long Feiyi waited in the room for the whole night again. Han Yunqi only returned in the middle of the night. This time, he witnessed the entire process of Han Yunqi taking a bath. It was only when Han Yunqi cleaned up and wrapped in a silk nightgown that he suddenly walked out from behind the screen and asked casually, Tired? Want to sleep? Han Yunqi was really frightened and almost fell off the bed. She stared at him in disbelief, wondering if she was dreaming. Why didn't you come out earlier? Han Yunqi also asked the same question last night. However, the meaning behind his words today was completely different. Last night, he came out when she was in the middle of her bath. Today, he actually silently watched her finish her bath before coming out. Just now, how much did he see? Thinking of this and looking at Long Feiyi's scrutinizing eyes, Han Yunqi couldn't help but think of their first time. She had taken off her clothes and he had seriously and overbearingly scrutinized her body, her everything. Sometimes, the way this man looked at her made her afraid. She felt like she would be eaten up at any time. I saw everything. Long Feiyi was still as direct as last night. He immediately ridiculed her. Your movements are quite nimble. Han Yunqi finally understood the displeasure in his eyes. Although her legs were a lot better and she could secretly take 2 or 3 steps, he absolutely forbade her from doing so. He wanted her to rest for a while before she could undergo rehabilitation training. Han Yunqi quickly changed the topic. Long Feiyi, didn't you go to Western Zhou? Chapter 9:15. Long Feiyi had no intention of going to Western Zhou at all. He had already thought of an excuse to meet Han Yunqi, but who knew that he would have to wait for her for an entire night. Not only did he have to wait, he even witnessed her dragging her legs to soak in the bath, not allowing her handmaidens to serve her. She even secretly took a few steps away. It was already good enough that he ignored Han Yunqi. If Han Yunqi angered him again, he would probably carry her away and put her under house arrest in East Origin Palace. He would let her recuperate until her legs were completely healed. Long Feiyi ignored her, and Han Yunqi did not anger Long Feiyi either. Instead, she began to act coquettishly. Long Feiyi, you're lying, aren't you? You can't bear to part with me, right? Under Long Feiyi's gloomy gaze, Han Yunqi held his arm. Her words caused Long Feiyi's expression to change completely. He avoided her smiling gaze. Am I right? Han Yunqi leaned over and asked gently. Long Feiyi coughed lightly and did not answer. Han Yunqi thought that she would have to deal with him for a while to calm him down. She did not expect it to be so simple. She really could not learn to speak coquettishly, so she asked gently, Long Feiyi, let's make a bet. With Han Yunqi's gentle voice, Long Feiyi's towering rage was instantly extinguished. Even if his heart was made of steel, it was instantly softened and melted by her words. He lowered his head to look at her. He was a little flustered and at a loss for what to do. He did not know how to respond. At this time, no matter what this woman asked of him, he would definitely agree to it. This was his Achilles heel. Han Yunqi did not ask for anything. She tugged at his arm and asked persistently, Long Feiyi, do you want to bet? Okay. He immediately agreed. He did not even know what to bet. I bet you'll come to me again tomorrow. Han Yunqi couldn't help bursting into laughter. Long Fei finally recovered from her gentleness and realized in hindsight that this woman was mocking him. He could hide it from her last night, but he came again tonight. No matter how perfect the excuse was, Han Yunqi would not believe it. Even though he was mocked by this woman, he did not get angry. Instead, he could not help but laugh along with her. Long Feiyi, what about you? What are you betting on? Han Yunqi asked again. She bet that he would come to find her the next day, so he had to bet that he wouldn't. If he wanted to win the bet, he would have to endure it tomorrow and not come. Han Yunqi was determined to eat him up and win against him. Well, you even tricked me. Long Feiyi smiled helplessly, full of pampering. I didn't. You were the one who was willing to bet with me. I didn't force you. Han Yunqi retorted. Han Yunqi was afraid that he would be angry at first, but seeing his reaction, she became playful. It was really not easy for her. After being with him for so long and being bullied so many times, she finally found his weak spot. Long Feiyi could not refute. How could there be such a woman who made people love and hate her? He hated her so much that his teeth itched. He loved her so much that he wanted to eat her up. Without saying a word, he pushed Han Yunqi, who was leaning against him, onto the couch. He quickly turned over and immediately pinned Han Yunqi under him. This action seemed to have been a long time. Han Yunqi quickly pushed her hands against his chest and distanced herself. Long Feiyi, you can't go back on your word. You promised to bet. You win. Long Feiyi laughed. Tell me, what do you want? This man looked even better when he laughed heartily than when he was pulling a long face. Han Yunqi had not seen him at such a close distance in a long time. Unconsciously, she looked at his face seriously. He had sharp eyebrows, starry eyes, and a sharp nose. He was really handsome. The closer she looked at him, the more she felt that he was unreal. Han Yunqi could not help but gently caress Long Feiyi's face. Only then did she feel that the person in front of her was real. Only then did she feel that falling in love with him and being doted on by him was not a dream. Her joking heart calmed down subconsciously. She asked gently, Long Feiyi, I won the bet. As punishment, you have to come and find me the day after tomorrow, okay? Long Feiyi was stunned. Soon, the smile on his face widened. Han Yunqi gently caressed the corner of his lips, feeling his real presence. It was too beautiful. She kept feeling that this was a dream. Long Feiyi did not reply. He looked down at her hand and allowed her to caress it. When her finger accidentally brushed past his lips, he sucked on it. Han Yunqi laughed, but Long Feiyi had no time to laugh with her. He quietly kissed his way down her finger and lingered on her jade arm until he reached her shoulder. "Fei!" Han Yunqi called out softly. His voice was low to begin with, but after being tainted with QY, it deepened even further. His was like a magic spell that made Han Yunqi's heart and body restless. A pleasant voice could make a person's ears pregnant. This was probably referring to Long Feiyi's type. He teased her from her shoulder all the way down until Han Yunqi couldn't hold back anymore. Her entire body began to tremble. By the time Long Feiyi reached the peak, Han Yunqi finally couldn't take it anymore. She hugged him and begged for mercy. It was so contradictory. Faced with her contradictions, Long Feiyi was absolutely domineering. He waved his hand to draw down the muslin canopy and did as she asked. He did his best to please her and satisfy her. In the darkness, uncontrollable screams and ambiguous gasps intertwined together. The two shadows reflected on the muslin canopy also intertwined. Sometimes they separated, sometimes they joined. The rhythm was enough to make one stop breathing. Han Yunqi felt like her soul was being pierced through. When the two of them finally calmed down, Long Feiyi was still unwilling to move away. She hugged him, both amused and angry. "What else do you want?" 100 steps. "You can't go any further, right?" Long Feiyi asked lazily. Only then did Han Yunqi realize that the distance between them was negative. She was so embarrassed that her flushed cheeks turned even redder. "You pervert," she said coquettishly. Long Fei buried his head in her shoulder and chuckled soundlessly. Han Yunqi pushed him a few times, but he still didn't move. Actually, there were many times when she couldn't do anything to him, so she just let him hang around. Hugging each other wasn't just hugging each other, it was also having each other. Only when she hugged him tightly did she feel that the road ahead was long and not lonely. When she looked at his face so closely just now, it wasn't as close and real as it was now. The Bible said, "I see that everything done under the sun is empty and chasing after the wind." Han Yunqi thought that there was only one definition of what was real, and that was to have it. Only when one had it would it be real. Han Yunqi was in a daze. Long Feiyi eventually retreated. He casually grabbed the silk blanket and wrapped it around his body. Even if it was just a casual movement, it was still so beautiful and sexy. Only then did Han Yunqi see that the bite mark on his left hand had already become a scar. There were two scars, half crescent-shaped and dark brown. Although some bite marks left scars, they would gradually fade over time. However, the bite mark on Long Feiyi's hand was so deep that it would stay there for the rest of his life unless he used some miracle medicine. Since the scar had been successfully left behind, what else could Han Yunqi say? She pulled Long Feiyi's hand over and looked at it carefully. Long Feiyi, if what? The birthmark was actually a bite mark from a lover in her past life. If it was later, she had always been curious. Long Feiyi smiled but didn't say anything. Han Yunqi pestered him. She found his Achilles heel and pleaded gently, "Tell me." Who knew that Long Feiyi still wouldn't tell her? He had already made up his mind not to tell her so early. Han Yunqi didn't give up. She simply acted coquettishly and begged coquettishly, "Long Feiyi, just tell me. Tell me, tell me." As she begged, she even rubbed against his chest. Long Feiyi's immunity was completely gone. No matter how strong his heart was, it couldn't withstand her coquettish voice. He had always hated this kind of voice, but he couldn't resist her. If she continued to pester him like this, she might not be able to get out of bed even when the sun rose. Okay, I'll tell you." As soon as Long Feiyi surrendered, Han Yunqi immediately stopped pestering him. Long Feiyi immediately regretted it. Actually, it was okay to be pestered by her for a while longer. "Tell me." She became serious. A birthmark is actually a bite mark from a lover in a previous life. If the bite mark doesn't disappear until death in this life, it will definitely become a birthmark in the next life. Long Feiyi paused for a moment and laughed. "Han Yunqi, if you see this bite mark in the next life, you have to recognize me." It was a beautiful legend, but why did Han Yunqi feel like crying when she heard it? She was silent for a moment. Suddenly, she stretched out her hand. "Long Feiyi, bite it. Bite it hard." She clearly didn't believe in such a ridiculous legend, but for some reason, she wanted to leave a mark that belonged to him. Long Feiyi rejected her. "Don't worry. If there really is a next life, I'll recognize you even if you don't have a birthmark." So, did he believe it or not? Han Yunqi knitted her brows as she looked at him. She felt like she should say something, but didn't know what to say. She stared and stared at Long Fei until she suddenly hugged him tightly. What next life? If they could grow old together in this life, be it ruling the world or making money, then it would be eternal. Han Yunqi didn't like the topic of next life. She said, Long Feiyi, let me tell you some good news. Good news? Long Feiyi was very surprised. Ning Jing is pregnant. She's been pregnant for more than 4 months, Han Yunqi said softly. Long Feiyi smiled. Tang Li, this rascal, you're going to be an uncle. Han Yunqi said again. Although Long Feiyi was happy for Tang Li, he wasn't as happy as Han Yunqi. He looked at Han Yunqi's stomach expressionlessly. He didn't say a word, and Han Yunqi knew what he was thinking. Long Feiyi knew she knew what he meant, so he waited for her to speak. After a while, Han Yunqi said, it's almost dawn. In other words, he had to leave. Long Fei gave a serious sigh. Looks like I haven't worked hard enough. A few years ago, they had attended a family banquet in the palace. At the time, the Empress Dowager had asked about Han Yunqi's stomach. Long Feiyi had said he would work hard when he returned. Long Feiyi got off the bed and quickly packed up to leave. Han Yunqi couldn't help but grab his hand. Fei, it's not time yet. I know, Long Feiyi said mildly. He could stop Bailey Yuanlong, but he couldn't stop Han Yunqi herself. He had always known that she would take precautions after the event. Now really wasn't the time to have a child. He hadn't even fulfilled his promise to her, so how could he give her another responsibility? He really hadn't worked hard enough. Chapter 9:16. If now was not the time, when would it be? At the very least, it had to be like the pot of sunflowers she had moved outside the tent. They had to see the light and be magnanimous. Unlike now, when he had to leave at daybreak. If you need money, go to Kangon Bank and tell them your name. Long Feiyi left these words before leaving. Undoubtedly, he had given in again. In these 2 nights, he had the urge to find Han Yunqi several times and take her away to carry out his plan to lure Bai Yanqing out. But in the end, he restrained himself. Han Yunqi stared blankly as Long Feiyi's lonely figure disappeared outside the window. Her heart ached faintly. Of course, she knew that Long Feiyi had given in again. If Myriad Merchant Hall wanted to survive this crisis, it was all about money. As long as they could hold on, they could afford to play, right? She had Long Feiyi's limitless gold card, but she could not use it openly in Myriad Merchant Hall. If it was a bank, she could borrow it in the name of the Chamber of Commerce. Borrowing money was not an easy task. Besides, if the Chamber of Commerce wanted to borrow money, it would be a large sum. It was even more difficult. Since Long Feiyi had opened his mouth, it would be easy no matter how much she borrowed. Long Feiyi had given in for her, but it had also benefited the D clan for nothing. Long Feiyi, even if we meet on the battlefield, I will definitely live on and bear you a bunch of children. Han Yunqi murmured with tears in her eyes and a smile. Even if Long Feiyi had given in, she did not want Long Feiyi to suffer losses. She had a way. In the next few days, Han Yunqi was really busy. Long Feiyi would come over at night to help her change her bandages and hug her to sleep. The 2 of them did not bring up the topic of children again. Long Feiyi clearly knew that there would be no result no matter how hard he tried, but he worked even harder than before. He even tormented her several times in one night, leaving countless marks on her body. Han Yunqi always felt that he was punishing her. However, she accepted it and gladly endured it. She worked even harder to think of a way to settle the matter with Myriad Merchant Hall. It took Uncle Cheng 3 days to find 2 locations in the 2 busiest cities near the 3-way battlefield. One was located on the border between Tianning and Western Zhou, and was called the West Jade Garden. The other was located within Tianning, south of the 3-way black market, and was called the South Jew Garden. Both gardens occupied a large area. There were enough halls to be converted into gambling halls and enough side rooms to be converted into guest rooms. As soon as Uncle Cheng returned, he gave Han Yunqi the blueprints for the 2 gardens. Han Yunqi studied them carefully and liked them very much. She also silently admired Uncle Cheng's ability to find locations. These 2 gardens used to be summer residences for the Ning imperial clan. A few years ago, Emperor Tianhui lacked funds for his troops during the Civil War, so he sold off many of the imperial gardens, including the South Jew and West Jade gardens. They were sold off at a cheap price. After the buyer bought them, they left them empty. After all, the border regions are filled with war, so it's not a good place to live, Uncle Cheng explained. Before Cloud Realm Trade Consortium lost its business with the South Central regions, they rarely bought empty gardens or residences no matter how rich they were. Most of their wealth was invested in business. Gardens and residences didn't make money, but they were extremely costly. It was not a small expense for a garden to be equipped with servants and housekeepers. Moreover, every brick, tile, flower, tree, and grass in the garden needed to be maintained regularly. The D clan's Ning family was definitely a family of merchants. They haggled over every penny and wouldn't waste a single copper coin unless it was absolutely necessary. Since they're empty, the price shouldn't be too high, right? Han Yunqi asked. Uncle Cheng sighed and raised a palm. Now everyone was stunned, including Han Yunqi. One palm was worth 5. The price was 50 million? 500 million yuan? After all, these two gardens weren't just any ordinary gardens. In terms of land area, one of them was worth more than 10 large residences combined. Of course it couldn't be 50 million. But if it wasn't 50 million, could it be 500 million? That was too high, wasn't it? Just how much is it? The head elder grew anxious. The two residences belong to the same person. His surname is Chen, and his origins are unknown. If we sell them together, it'll be 500 million, Uncle Cheng replied. Is this daylight robbery? The head elder cursed. What's going on? Could it be that he knows we're buying them to open a gambling house? Old Cheng, did you leak something? The second elder questioned. I'm innocent. I didn't leak anything. I just said that master likes it and wants to buy it for a short stay. Uncle Cheng looked aggrieved. In reality, the garden owner had only offered a price of 200 million. Uncle Cheng had promised to give the garden owner an additional 50 million as a rebate, so that the garden owner could fake the price with him and raise the price. Then what's going on? Han Yunqi asked. The garden owner said that if we don't hurry up and order it, we might not be able to buy it in 2 days, Uncle Cheng said helplessly. There are others who want to buy it? Who are they? Han Yunqi quickly asked. Uncle Cheng shook his head. The garden owner refused to say. I'm wondering if it's someone from East Origin Hall. If the garden owner can offer 500 million, it means that the other buyers are not cheap. Aside from East Origin Hall, who else in this war-torn land could be so wealthy to throw away such a large sum of money? Han Yunqi wasn't the only one who could think of opening another gambling house. If East Origin Hall beat them to it, then it would be difficult for them. The elders looked at each other and became anxious. Actually, Myriad Merchant Hall could afford the price of 500 million. Even if they couldn't, they could use the limitless gold card to pay first. However, once they bought it, what if Han Yunqi's plan to reopen the gambling house failed? Then this expenditure would go down the drain. No matter how perfect a business model was, there were still risks. 500 million was not a small sum. At this critical juncture, Myriad Merchant Hall couldn't afford to gamble. The silver used on the limitless gold card had to be returned within a month. Uncle Cheng saw the difficult expressions on the elders' faces and was secretly delighted. He had led the suspicion to East Origin Hall, which was foolproof. First, it would arouse the elders' fighting spirit. Second, no one would be able to investigate the truth. It's good, but it's a little too big. We don't need such a big one. Old Cheng, is there anything else? Grand Elder asked tactfully. That's it. There are only these 2 places. If someone else gets there first, they won't be able to get there. If they snatch them, it'll be difficult for us. Uncle Cheng said. Actually, it was possible to open a gambling house elsewhere, but it wouldn't be as convenient as near the three-way black market. Those who came to the three-way black market to do business were mostly gamblers. Seeing that no one spoke, Uncle Cheng helplessly reminded, Princess, we can choose another place. However, if East Origin Hall takes over such a good place and we reopen the gambling house, they'll copy our gambling house model. Then we really won't be able to survive. Hearing this, the elders became anxious. No matter how good a business model was, it still required the right time, place, and people. Location was very important when doing business. A complicated look flashed across Han Yunqi's eyes. When she looked at Uncle Cheng, her gaze deepened. Long Fei wanted to buy a garden? Why didn't he tell her? If he wanted to buy a garden, then so be it. Why did he have to ask for such a high price? Was Uncle Cheng lying? Or did Long Fei want to give her a surprise? As for the truth, she'd better ask him tonight. Han Yunqi accepted the 2 blueprints and said calmly, I'll think about it for a night and give you an answer tomorrow morning. Elders, please consider it carefully. Uncle Cheng sneered inwardly. These 2 gardens were enough to make things difficult for Han Yunqi. He didn't need to think about the auction house anymore. After discussing the gambling house, Han Yunqi asked about the auction house. That troublemaking buyer had already been locked up in Myriad Merchant Hall's dungeon for 2 days. Grand Elder had arranged everything properly. Now, the 2 sides of public opinion in the three-way black market were evenly matched. Some said that the buyer had been silenced by Myriad Merchant Hall. Myriad Merchant Hall refused to admit to selling fake goods and even killed the buyer. Others said that the buyer had been kidnapped by Golden Wing Palace. Golden Wing Palace not only hit Myriad Merchant Hall when they were down in the gambling house, they also wanted to frame Myriad Merchant Hall for the auction house. Everything was progressing smoothly, but the buyer still refused to confess. "Princess, could it be that we made a mistake?" Grand Elder asked seriously. He had used capital punishment, but the buyer insisted that he was innocent. "There's no need to interrogate him. Rest well," Han Yunqi said calmly. "Princess, the auction house hasn't had any business for 6 days. Yesterday, old Lu brought out the 10 treasures. There were many onlookers, but no one bid," Second Elder said helplessly. No matter what public opinion was, it would pass eventually. The key was whether the auction house still had business. "Everyone knows about Kangon Bank, right?" Han Yunqi said calmly. As soon as this name was announced, everyone's eyes lit up. Kangon Private Bank was Cloud Realm Continent's #1 private bank, famous for its mysterious background. Out of the 10 limitless gold cards, 5 of them came from this bank. The limitless gold card that Deacon Jean had given to Mu Ling came from Kangon Bank. Apparently, people from the bank had already sought out Deacon Jean over the past few days. "Princess, why did you mention Kangon Bank?" Grand Elder asked nervously. "I'm planning to use the auction house business to cooperate with Kangon Bank. Manager Luo has agreed, but I don't know what you all think?" Everyone grew even more stunned at her words. Not to mention the method of cooperation, since shopkeeper Luo had agreed, it meant that the cooperation was profitable. In other words, the auction house's business could be saved. Manager Luo was a famous figure in the circle for being in charge of such a large bank. Any business he approved of would definitely succeed. In his excitement, Grand Elder blurted out, "Princess, you can make all the decisions. This is Myriad Merchant Hall's business, after all. It's more appropriate for the elders to make the decisions." Han Yunqi feigned modesty. "Your Highness Princess is too modest. We have pledged our loyalty to Western Qin, so naturally we'll listen to the princess's arrangements." Grand Elder immediately followed up. "The Council of Elders will listen to your Highness Princess's arrangements." Han Yunqi didn't need their verbal obedience. She wanted Myriad Merchant Hall's Elder Command Medallion. Without Ning Cheng here, Myriad Merchant Hall's Elder Command Medallion was superior to all of the D Clan's Council of Elders. As long as Grand Elder was willing to hand over the item, she'd win. Chapter 917. Han Yunqi and Kangon Bank had reached an agreement. Any guest who participated in Myriad Merchant Hall's auction could borrow money from Kangon Bank to pay the auction house once they won the bid. Furthermore, the interest rate would be 10 points lower than the normal interest rate. Many people bid for rare items at high prices, not because they had any use for them, nor because they liked to keep them. Instead, they wanted to resell them. Once they won the bid, they could sell it within a month. They could also hoard it and sell it a year later. People in this kind of business wouldn't just bid for one item. Many people would bid for several items in a single night. A large portion of them had the problem of lacking funds. They would often calculate the interest rate and borrow money to bid for the items. Even if they borrowed money to bid, they could still resell the item in the end. They could still make a profit. Han Yunqi's suggestion of a partnership was simply to serve these people. As long as they participated in Myriad Merchant Hall's auction house, they could get a loan from Kangon Bank that was 10 points lower than the normal interest rate. How could they not be tempted? It was equivalent to earning 10 points more than at other auction houses. What did 10 points mean? If an item was worth 10 million, then 10 points would be 1 million. Han Yunqi didn't need to explain further. Everyone present knew how tempting this offer was. With Kangon Private Bank's strong support, as long as Myriad Merchant Hall came up with some policies and promised to compensate for the fakes, many buyers would come uninvited. Once they came, they would slowly boost the auction hall's business. As long as the auction house was strictly controlled within a month or two and there were no more fake goods, business would definitely be better than before. They might even steal business away from Golden Wing Hall and East Origin Hall. "Princess, why is Kangon Bank giving us such a huge discount?" Uncle Cheng asked. This was what everyone wanted to know. What kind of relationship did Han Yunqi have with Kangon Bank? How could she get such a huge advantage? Unexpectedly, Han Yunqi said, "We didn't. We have a secret agreement. Kangon Bank will give the buyer 10% of the profit, and Myriad Merchant Hall will compensate Kangon Bank with 13%. Kangon Bank actually earns 3% more than the normal interest." The moment she said this, Uncle Cheng panicked. "Princess, in the end, we'll be the ones at a disadvantage. We lost 13 points for nothing. That's a bargain for the buyers. How can there be such a good thing?" Han Yunqi sneered, "All right then. Go make an announcement right now. Say that Myriad Merchant Hall's auction house will offer a 13% discount on everything sold. See who's willing to come. Let's see who will believe you. Uncle Chang was speechless. The elders looked at each other, speechless. Why should Kangon Bank earn more? They had credibility, and buyers were willing to trust them. Uncle Chang, the fact that Kangon Bank is willing to cooperate with us means that they're giving us credit for free. Is Kangon Bank's reputation only worth 3%? Han Yunqi questioned. Uncle Chang didn't say anything, so she continued, we lost 13 points, but that's not a loss. At most, we earned less. Which item sold at the auction house didn't earn several times the original price. Besides, the buyers might not necessarily repay the full amount of the loan, so we might not earn so much from every sale. Uncle Chang didn't answer, so Han Yunqi looked at him coldly. Uncle Chang, do you know how to calculate? Uncle Chang's head hung even lower. He didn't dare to retort, secretly hating himself for being too impulsive just now. All of the elders looked at Han Yunqi, thoroughly convinced of her abilities. They were all old, and this was the first time in their lives that they had seen such a capable woman who could manipulate business to such an extent. Han Yunqi was right. Although they had gone in a roundabout way, the auction house didn't lose any money, but only lost 13 points. Based on the current situation, even if they lost some money temporarily, they had to recover the business. What's more, they only lost 13 points. This woman was simply too smart. No wonder Manager Luo of Kangon Bank was willing to cooperate with her. First Elder secretly thought that if this matter was really successful, he would give the Elder's token to the princess. He believed that this woman had enough ability to lead Myriad Merchant Hall to regain the dominant position in three-way black market. Princess is wise. The Elders Guild will definitely support you fully, the Great Elder said seriously. The other 4 elders also took a step forward and bowed respectfully to show their loyalty. No matter how unwilling Uncle Chang was, he had to bow as well. Uncle Chang couldn't help but sigh again. How great would it be if this woman wasn't still together with Long Fei? If this woman could be together with Master Ning, he would do his best even if he had to sacrifice his old life. Thinking of Master Ning, Uncle Chang's eyes unconsciously turned red. He had already sent more people to search for him, and even went to Northernly. Unfortunately, there was no news so far. Han Yunqi discussed some details with the elders. When the meeting ended, it was already dark. She knew that Long Feiyi would come, so she hurried to Ning Jing's side. When Ning Jing found out that Long Feiyi was behind Kangon Bank, she was so shocked that she almost had a miscarriage. At this time, even the competitive Ning Jing had to admit that the D clan was no match for Long Feiyi. She couldn't help but wonder how Ning Chang would feel if he knew about this. Han Yunqi hadn't mentioned Tang Li for a few days, but Ning Jing took the initiative to ask, how does the elders plan to deal with Tang Li? A trace of heartache flashed across Han Yunqi's eyes. She smiled and said, you're so concerned about him. Ning Jing rolled her eyes at her and didn't say anything else. Han Yunqi didn't joke with her anymore. She said, they're already busy enough with the casino and the auction. How can they care about Tang Li? Ning Jing was silent for a while before speaking again. Han Yunqi, First Elder will definitely give you the Elder's token. As long as you control Myriad Merchant Hall, the Chamber of Commerce and the army will have to listen to you. You'll be able to see Long Feiyi very soon. Han Yunqi was helpless. She saw Long Feiyi every day. Not only did she see him every day, but she was also tortured by him every day. She knew what Ning Jing meant. As long as she controlled Myriad Merchant Hall, she could openly cooperate with Long Feiyi and fight against Bai Yanqing in the name of Eastern and Western Qin. Han Yunqi, I have a favor to ask of you, Ning Jing said. I promise you. Han Yunqi answered without hesitation. Ning Jing was helpless. You know what I'm going to say? You want me to let Tang Li go, right? Han Yunqi smiled again. Ning Jing didn't hide it anymore. She openly admitted, Han Yunqi, before you leave Myriad Merchant Hall, please let Tang Li go. Silly, if I don't let him go, how can he take you away? Han Yunqi said this in her heart. Then what about you? Han Yunqi asked. If there really is a misunderstanding between Eastern and Western Qin, then, Ning Jing hesitated for a while, then said, then please tell him that the child and I are waiting for him at Myriad Merchant Hall. Han Yunqi endured it again and again. She was afraid that Ning Jing's pregnancy would be affected. Tang Li had also told her not to say anything and let her rest first. If we're not destined to be together, then don't worry about me, and don't look for me, Ning Jing said. Han Yunqi only nodded and didn't say anything else. Han Yunqi left Ning Jing's courtyard and went back. However, Long Feiyi was still at East Origin Hall, for no other reason than that shopkeeper Luo had come to see him. If East Origin Hall was East Qin's treasury, then Kangon Private Bank was Long Feiyi's personal property. The group of people from Kangon Private Bank didn't have any national enmity. They pointed out Long Feiyi and money. "Master, you have to hold on to such a smart and capable woman," shopkeeper Luo said teasingly. Although Han Yunqi didn't say much, a smile appeared on her lips. Han Yunqi was indeed his woman. She didn't let him suffer at all. Actually, Han Yunqi didn't need to say her name. Shopkeeper Luo would have agreed to her request. A private bank's profits came from the transactions of deposits and loans. Those who opened a private bank played with risk and reputation. Han Yunqi gave them 3% of profit for free. Of course they were happy to cooperate. Moreover, Han Yunqi's method of cooperation was simply too clever. He was sincerely convinced. "How's the matter with Deacon Jean coming along?" Long Feiyi asked. "I sent someone to rush him today and he's pretty much been forced into a dead end." "Master, please wait and see." Shopkeeper Luo replied. Long Feiyi already had his eyes on Deacon Jean. This fellow was very good at dealing with private banks and he was a member of the Wintercrow clan. He was proficient in the Wintercrow language, so he would have other uses for him. It was a pity that this fellow was too arrogant. If he didn't first pressure him and then buy him over, it would be very hard to make him yield. After shopkeeper Luo left, Long Feiyi asked the Shadow Guard, "Has everything been arranged for the 100 Poison sect?" "Everything has been arranged." The Shadow Guard honestly replied and handed over several secret letters. Long Feiyi wanted to lure out Bai Yanqing, so he had to make a move on the 100 Poison sect. This was the only method left. Long Feiyi had just opened the second letter when the Shadow Guard came forward to remind him, "Your Highness, it's getting late." In other words, Han Yunqi was waiting for him. How could the Shadow Guard be so busy? This must have been instructed by Su Donglin. Long Fei carried a pile of secret missives with him as he climbed over the walls of the courtyard. Only after he left would Bailey Mingxiang, who had been sitting in the garden waiting for him, return to her room. These days, she had been sitting in the garden in a daze when she wasn't cultivating. She missed esteemed Wang Fei, missed Xiao Yu, missed her father, and missed Zhao Mama. When Long Feiyi entered the room, Han Yunqi was already lazily lying on the couch. "Waiting for me?" Long Feiyi asked with great interest. Unexpectedly, Han Yunqi readily admitted, "I've been waiting for you all night." "Then come earlier tomorrow night." Long Feiyi said this on purpose, knowing that she had something to say. "Long Feiyi, do you want to buy South Ju Garden and West Jade Garden?" Han Yunqi asked bluntly. Long Feiyi took Han Yunqi's rhetorical question as a question. "Do you like them?" he asked. "No." Han Yunqi hastened to explain. "I'm asking if you have plans to buy those two gardens? Have you sent someone to talk about the price?" Long Feiyi smiled. "They're already under my name. Why would I want to buy them?" Han Yunqi slowly raised her head, her expression incredulous. "Just how many gardens do you have?" Long Feiyi smiled but didn't speak. "You've taken a fancy to those two gardens?" A war-torn land was not a good place, nor was it a good place to hide. When Tianhui sold them at a low price, I bought them with the intention of reselling them. "How much did you buy them for?" Han Yunqi asked anxiously. 30 million for one, 60 million for two, Long Feiyi replied honestly. "Then what about selling them? How much are you planning to sell them for?" Han Yunqi asked again. "I've left them to my subordinates to manage." "I'm not sure either," Long Feiyi said mildly. He was just playing around with small businesses like this. He didn't care much about them. Han Yunqi narrowed her eyes. "Long Feiyi, someone's offering 500 million. Are you selling them?" Note to the reader, my previous address was wrong. Tang Li's children should call Long Feiyi uncle, not uncle. Chapter 918. 500 million? Long Feiyi grew suspicious. Han Yunqi wouldn't be so bored as to play such a joke on him. If Myriad Merchant Hall wanted to buy it, they wouldn't have offered such a high price. "What's going on?" Long Feiyi asked. Seeing Long Feiyi's attitude, Han Yunqi was 100% certain that Uncle Chang was up to something. If Long Feiyi's subordinate really offered 500 million, then such a large transaction would definitely be reported to Long Feiyi. Long Feiyi knew nothing about this matter, so there was only one possibility, and that was that Uncle Chang had misstated the price. Why would Uncle Chang misstate the price? Was it to line his own pockets and earn money from Myriad Merchant Hall? Or was it to make things difficult for her? Or perhaps it was both. What a Uncle Chang. If Ning Chang hadn't gone missing, his guts would have grown. "Are you selling it for 500 million? Han Yunqi smiled even more meaningfully. 600 million. Are you buying it? Long Feiyi asked in return. Although he didn't know the whole story, he was certain that Myriad Merchant Hall had to be the one paying for it. 600 million. That's 300 million per garden. Han Yunqi began to calculate seriously. 600 million is a little expensive. 700 million. If you want it, then hurry up and order it. Otherwise, I won't sell it even if it's 1 billion. Long Feiyi also said seriously. What was this? 100 million taels in the time it took to say one sentence? If the 5 great elders knew about this, would they all vomit blood and die? What would Uncle Cheng think if he knew? No matter how profitable the casino was, it wasn't as efficient as Long Feiyi's money-making. Buy. 700 million it is. No more increases. Han Yunqi couldn't help but laugh after saying that. This couldn't be considered as her helping Long Feiyi fight against Myriad Merchant Hall. It could only be said that Ning Cheng wasn't strict enough with his subordinates and had been tricked by them. A house worth 30 million was sold for 300 million. Long Feiyi had made a huge profit. It was enough for many merchants to earn money for 1 or 2 years. What's going on? Long Feiyi warned. If you don't tell me, then prepare another 100 million. 800 million? Han Yunqi's mouth twitched. The price was ridiculously high. The elders would definitely oppose the purchase of these 2 gardens. This matter would be ruined. She immediately told Long Feiyi what Uncle Cheng had told her that day. Long Feiyi immediately understood what was going on. He didn't comment much, but a cold smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He only said, the person in charge of the 2 gardens is called Jia Dai. Tomorrow, I'll send someone over to inform him. You can handle the rest yourself. With that, he took out the secret letter. Leaning against the bed, he opened the letter one by one. Han Yunqi propped her hands on the bed and dragged her legs to sit up. She looked at Long Feiyi with a smile but didn't say anything. Long Feiyi didn't need to raise his head to know that she was looking at him. He ignored her and finished reading the secret letter in his hand. Then, he asked, "What are you laughing at?" Han Yunqi's smile deepened. Long Feiyi caressed her small face. "What are you up to now? I'll give you all 700 million. Remember, Myriad Merchant Hall is not allowed to owe you a single cent." "I don't want your money." Han Yunqi rejected him immediately. Long Feiyi finally looked up at her. "If you're not robbing me, then are you robbing me for my body?" Han Yunqi immediately shook her head. Before she could speak, Long Feiyi approached her. "Then what are you laughing at?" Han Yunqi wrapped her arms around his neck and said seriously, "I just feel that it's really good to have you." Long Feiyi slowly lowered his head and pressed his forehead against hers. He said gently, "I'm only good to you." With that, he lowered his head and kissed her gently on the lips. Then, he took her hand away and focused on reading the secret letter. Han Yunqi's heart skipped a beat. She hadn't expected this. Once she wrapped her arms around his neck, he definitely wouldn't let her go. Especially these past few nights, as long as he was on this bed, he definitely wouldn't let her be idle. He would torment her until she was powerless and fainted. But, what was wrong with him tonight? Han Yunqi was filled with suspicion. Hugging a pillow, she sat at the side and watched as Long Feiyi focused on the secret letter without any distractions. The more Han Yunqi looked at him, the more she felt that something was wrong. Was this still her highness? Was he still that hungry wolf that she had been feeding for more than 2 months and couldn't get enough of? Han Yunqi thought that these secret letters should be very important, so she waited obediently at the side. After Long Feiyi finished reading all the secret letters, he laid down on his side and said to her, "Why aren't you coming over?" Han Yunqi laughed inwardly. She really misunderstood him. She obediently snuggled into his embrace. She could already guess what he would do next. However, Han Yunqi waited for a long time. Long Feiyi didn't provoke her like he did in the past. Instead, he just hugged her and quietly closed his eyes to sleep. Han Yunqi's eyes widened. Her gaze was complicated. If she still couldn't sense that Long Feiyi was acting strangely, then she had accompanied him for so many years in vain. After a long period of silence, she gently took his hand, and Long Fei took it in his own. "You're not asleep yet?" Han Yunqi asked in a low voice. "Sleep." Long Feiyi pulled her hand and wrapped it around her waist, hugging her a little tighter. How could Han Yunqi sleep? After a moment of silence, her small hand carefully broke free from Long Feiyi's large hand. However, the moment she broke free, Long Feiyi pulled her again and said in a low voice, "Be good. Sleep." Han Yunqi quieted down again. However, not long after, her hand moved again. This time, Long Feiyi didn't stop her. Instead, he let her do as she pleased. Han Yunqi didn't do much either. She just gently stroked his fingers, caressing his slender fingers one by one. It was as if she was bored to death from insomnia, or as if she was secretly plotting something. Long Feiyi was behind her, but his eyes were open the whole time. He was originally going to sleep, but the moment she moved, he was even more awake than she was. Han Yunqi played with Long Feiyi's fingers. Seeing that Long Feiyi didn't move, she pulled his hand to her lips and kissed it gently. Long Feiyi's lips curled up slightly. He laughed silently and helplessly. Long Feiyi. Finally, Han Yunqi spoke in a low voice. Long Feiyi didn't move. He didn't answer. He smiled dotingly and helplessly. Only then did he realize that this woman was like him, desiring the other party. Long Feiyi. Han Yunqi called out softly again. He couldn't bear to leave her hanging for too long. He pulled her hand down and hid it under the silk blanket. He held it down and said in a low voice, "All right, be good and sleep." Han Yunqi finally realized that there was something wrong with Long Feiyi tonight. Something was very wrong. She turned around and looked at him with a frown. Although she didn't ask, they had a tacit understanding. Long Feiyi avoided her gaze and pulled her head into his embrace. Be good, be good. Go to sleep. I'll hug you to sleep." Han Yunqi wanted to move again, but Long Feiyi finally restrained her. He said in a low voice, "Your body is more important. Be good." Han Yunqi suddenly realized what he meant. So he was concerned about her contraception. A tinge of bitterness surged in her heart. How could a mere good describe how good this man was? "Long Feiyi, you're so good that I really have no way of repaying you." Han Yunqi sat up as she spoke. Long Feiyi sat up as well and was about to coax her when Han Yunqi wrapped her arms around his neck again. Long Feiyi was about to move her hands away, but he couldn't bear to harden his heart. He lowered his head and murmured, "Yunqi, be good. It's time to sleep. I'm tired." She could hear the forbearance in his voice. Han Yunqi asked, "Long Feiyi, if you have no way of repaying me, will you give me your body?" He knitted his brows and was about to push her away when Han Yunqi suddenly pressed his head down so that he was buried in her chest. "Stop fooling around." Long Feiyi grew anxious. He remembered that Han Yunqi wouldn't let go, so he simply grabbed his hand and pressed it against her ample bosom. In this world, only this woman dared to force him like this. Only this woman had the ability to force him. Long Feiyi finally couldn't hold himself back. He ruthlessly pushed her hand away from his head, but didn't leave. Instead, he viciously bit down. Although the bite wasn't deep, it left a shallow bite mark on her chest, which hurt a little. As soon as he let go, he growled, "Han Yunqi, you asked for it. I'm happy to." Han Yunqi threw caution to the wind. How could this man not want her? She gently stroked his chest. When she saw him furrow his brows, she became even more ruthless and pounced on him to kiss the sensitive spot on his chest. Han Yunqi. Long Feiyi immediately raised his head and growled, "Han Yunqi, that's enough." "It's not enough," Han Yunqi said ruthlessly. She traced his refined and well-defined muscles all the way down. Long Feiyi raised his head and closed his eyes. Only his long eyelashes trembled slightly. A thin layer of sweat seeped out from his temples. His expression seemed to be in pain, but he couldn't stop even if he wanted to. This was definitely torture. Fire burned through his entire body, as if his soul was bathed in fire. In the end, only Han Yunqi could put out the fire. That night, Han Yunqi truly experienced what it meant to play with fire and get burned. She slept and woke up all night. It wasn't until daybreak that a servant girl knocked on the door to remind her to eat, but Long Fei still didn't release her. "I'm not feeling well, so I'll get up later. Pass down the order that no one is to disturb me." Han Yunqi lay on the bed, trying her best to make her voice sound less hoarse. Long Feiyi bullied her behind her back, ruthlessly punishing her for her provocation last night. When the servant left, Han Yunqi's tense nerves finally relaxed, letting him run wild. "Long Feiyi, I'm so tired." When Han Yunqi was about to fall asleep, she faintly heard Long Feiyi say, "Fool, there won't be a next time." She immediately woke up and glared at him. With a flushed face and large angry eyes, Long Feiyi couldn't help laughing. However, he still seriously warned, "Take care of your body. You still owe this prince a dozen babies." Han Yunqi hooked her finger, indicating for him to come closer. When Long Feiyi came closer, she told him the secret formula in a low voice. She was proficient in acupuncture, so she naturally had a way to prevent pregnancy without harming her body. When Long Feiyi heard this, he forced out a smile. "That's good." She saw the disappointment and helplessness in his eyes. He gently stroked the bite mark on her chest, deep in thought. After a while, he rubbed her bangs and revealed a pampering smile. "Go to sleep. Chu Tianyin will come over tonight, so I'll be a bit late." Han Yunqi didn't make a sound, but her heart felt suffocated. Long Feiyi was just like last night. Without saying anything, he turned and left. His back disappeared from the window, but Han Yunqi was still staring at him in a daze. After a while, Han Yunqi finally sat up. She wasn't like before, using acupuncture to prevent pregnancy as soon as she woke up. Instead, she tidied up her clothes and called a servant to send her to Ningjing's side. What was she doing? Chapter 919. Han Yunqi didn't go to Ningjing's place to look for Ningjing. Instead, she went to look for Mu Ling-er. When she arrived, Mu Ling-er was brewing medicine for Ningjing. Other than Qi brother, Mu Ling-er had never served anyone so attentively in her life. Ling-er, let me ask you something, Han Yunqi said in a low voice. What is it? Mu Ling-er asked curiously. Is there any medicine that can? Han Yunqi thought for a moment and said directly, is there any medicine that can leave a scar? Who do you want to leave a scar on? Mu Ling-er was even more curious. Just tell me if there is, Han Yunqi asked anxiously. Yes, there is, but, Han Yunqi didn't care about the but and immediately asked Mu Ling-er, make one for me. I want it right away. The bite mark on her chest from Long Fei Yi was only a mark, and there was no blood. This kind of bite mark would disappear in a day. She didn't have much time left. Mu Ling-er looked even more surprised. Sis, do you want to use it for yourself? Mu Ling-er had unknowingly gotten used to calling her sis. No. Someone else needs it urgently. Hurry up. Han Yunqi urged anxiously. No matter if it's for you or someone else, you can't use it casually. There are many things to pay attention to, Mu Ling-er explained seriously. Han Yunqi calmed down. What are the things to pay attention to? Hurry up and tell me. The amount of medicine used depends on the severity of the injury. Moreover, there are subtle differences in the amount of medicine used in different parts of the injury. Also, different amounts of medicine will leave different scars, Mu Ling-er explained and asked seriously, Sis, who do you want to leave a scar on? A woman or a man? Are you interrogating a criminal? The skin around the wound was already fragile. If he used that kind of medicine, it would be very painful. It would be 100 times more painful than rubbing salt on the wound. If you're interrogating a criminal, I can do some tricks and add some chili oil into the medicine. Han Yunqi was expressionless as she said coldly, I want to use it myself. Mu Ling-er was shocked. Sister, what are you doing? Han Yunqi began to think about how to tell Mu Ling-er. She could let her understand the condition of the injury and accurately determine the appropriate dosage of medicine without telling her that the wound was a bite mark. But no matter how she thought about it, it didn't seem appropriate. In the end, she decided to throw caution to the wind. She asked Mu Ling-er to take her to a room at the side. She unbuttoned her coat and let Mu Ling-er see her wound. It had been almost a day since last night. The bite mark had faded quite a bit, but there was still a clear outline. Mu Ling-er was stunned. Her gaze only lingered on the bite mark for a moment before quickly moving to the surrounding area. She saw that Han Yunqi's neck and around her chest were all marks. Some were bruises, some were red, some were deep, some were shallow. Although she was inexperienced, Mu Ling-er could tell. These were definitely marks left after a frenzy, including the bite mark right in the middle of Han Yunqi's chest. Judging from the depth of the bite mark, it should have been left last night, so, Mu Ling-er finally raised her head and looked at Han Yunqi in disbelief. Sister, did you have an affair last night? Mu Ling-er felt that something was wrong after saying that and immediately corrected herself. Long Fei Yi snuck into Myriad Merchant Hall last night? Mu Ling-er thought to herself. Long Fei Yi was such a cold person, yet he could torment her sister to this extent. How on earth did he torment her? Mu Ling-er's ears couldn't help but heat up. Han Yunqi's face was already completely red, but she ignored her embarrassment and shyness and urged, hurry and take a look. How should I use the medicine? Sister, Mu Ling-er stuttered for a long time before asking, do you want to leave all these scars? Han Yunqi was stunned, then her face turned even redder. Mu Ling-er still didn't understand that there was no need to leave these scars, because they were often there. With Long Fei's fetish, he'd do it every time. That's it. Hurry and help me think of a way. Han Yunqi tried very hard to ignore her embarrassment as she pointed at the bite mark on her chest and urged. Mu Ling-er had already noticed that Han Yunqi's face was completely red. She thought, this sister is really going all out to leave scars. She doesn't even care about her face anymore. Sister, don't worry. I won't tell anyone. Mu Ling-er promised with a straight face. Han Yunqi glanced at her, and she happened to look at Han Yunqi. Their eyes met, and Mu Ling-er finally couldn't help but burst into laughter. She laughed so hard that tears almost flowed out. She really wanted to say, Han Yunqi, so there are times when you're this silly too. Han Yunqi pulled a long face. Are you going to give me the medicine or not? Mu Ling-er tried very hard to calm herself down. She asked with a smile, how deep do you want the scars to be? The deeper, the better. I want the kind of scars that will remain even after death, Han Yunqi said seriously. Mu Linger became serious. Sister, what are you trying to do? It'll hurt a lot. Why are you talking so much nonsense? Hurry up and make the medicine. Han Yunqi urged unhappily. Mu Linger was still hesitating when Han Yunqi's stern gaze made her wilt. She said, then you have to promise me something. If Long Fei asks, don't tell him that I helped you. Of course, Han Yunqi said. Mu Linger immediately went to grab some medicine to mix. She mashed a few ingredients and added some special medicine to mash them into a paste before finally presenting it to Han Yunqi. Sister, when you apply this, your skin will sizzle and burn. It'll be very painful. You should think about it. Mu Linger couldn't help but remind her. This kind of medicine shouldn't have any effect on the body, right? Han Yunqi asked seriously. It won't have any effect, but it'll hurt. You have to bear with it. Mu Linger was still worried and emphasized again. It's the kind that'll hurt a lot. Help me apply the medicine. Han Yunqi didn't hesitate. Mu Linger became timid and hesitated. I'll do it myself, Han Yunqi said. I'll help you. Mu Linger took a towel and let Han Yunqi bite it before she dared to apply the medicine. She had only applied it once when Han Yunqi bit the towel tightly and widened her eyes. Mu Linger didn't dare to move. The room was silent, and only the sizzling sound of Han Yunqi's chest could be heard. Mu Linger turned her head away and didn't dare to look. Just listening to the sizzling sound gave her goosebumps. She secretly glanced at Han Yunqi's face and saw that her brows were tightly knitted and her face was pale, but there was a hint of determination in her eyes. Soon, Han Yunqi grabbed Mu Linger's hand and motioned for her to continue. Mu Linger could only bite the bullet and continue. After the medicine was applied, the pain gradually subsided. Han Yunqi sat in the wheelchair and breathed heavily. Mu Linger looked at her quietly and was a little distracted. She thought that if Chi brother bit her, she would definitely be able to endure the pain. She suddenly wished that Chi brother would bite her, even on her face. After a while, the pain subsided and the wound became cold. Han Yunqi was overjoyed. Linger, it feels cold. Is it done? Let me take a look. Mu Linger was also nervous. She hurriedly helped Han Yunqi clear the dregs of the medicine. She saw that the bite mark on Han Yunqi's chest had darkened a lot. It was slightly dark brown and looked like a birthmark at first glance. Although it didn't look good, Mu Linger liked it very much and felt that it was very romantic. Han Yunqi looked at the mirror and gently touched the bite mark. She thought that this bite mark was definitely deeper than the one on Long Fei Ye's hand. It might even be there in her next life. Mu Linger smiled slyly. Sis, Long Fei Ye will be able to see it tonight, right? Han Yunqi pretended not to hear and said, bring me a pen and paper. I'll write a few prescriptions for you to take a look. Mu Linger was confused. What was this woman trying to do now? Han Yunqi wrote down 3 prescriptions. Mu Linger saw that these prescriptions were for treating her leg injury. You took these before, right? I don't think you need them now, Mu Linger said. Help me take a look. These, Han Yunqi hesitated for a long time before continuing, can Ning Jing take these medicine? Ning Jing's leg is fine. Why would she take these medicine? Mu Linger didn't understand. Han Yunqi gritted her teeth and asked directly, I took these more than a month ago. Sis. Mu Linger suddenly understood and exclaimed, you're pregnant. Shoo. Han Yunqi's glare could kill, but Mu Linger wasn't afraid. She lowered her voice and asked, you're really pregnant? I wanted to ask you. I took these medicine more than a month ago. If I were to get pregnant now, would it affect me? Han Yunqi asked seriously. Mu Linger finally understood what was going on. A complicated look flashed across her eyes. She hesitated for a while before looking at the prescription seriously. Finally, she gave an answer. It won't affect me. Look, be serious. Han Yunqi was very careful with her patients, but she was even more careful with herself. I'm sure. Mu Linger wouldn't make a mistake in this kind of thing. Han Yunqi sighed softly and didn't say anything else. Mu Linger sat down in front of her and looked at her suspiciously. What are you looking at? Han Yunqi asked. Mu Linger didn't say anything. She took her hand to check her pulse. Han Yunqi avoided her. Not yet. Sis. Mu Linger was anxious. You want to get pregnant at this juncture? I still have something to do with the elders. I'll leave first. Han Yunqi avoided the topic and wanted to leave. Mu Linger didn't let her. Sis, let's talk about this. Han Yunqi still didn't want to talk about it. She pushed her away and wanted to leave. Sis, I'm from your family. Let's talk. Mu Linger pressed on her wheelchair. She had never sounded so serious before. Family? Han Yunqi's heart skipped a beat, but she compromised in the end. Sis, you still have a battle with Bai Yanqing. It's unknown how dangerous it will be. How are you going to settle the grudge between Eastern and Western Qin? Mu Ling'er said calmly, Sis, you've seen how Ningjing is. She's already 4 months pregnant, but she's still hiding it. Don't tell me you want to be like her? Long Feiyi and Tang Li are different, Han Yunqi retorted. You're different from Ningjing too. Ling'er was agitated. In her heart, Han Yunqi was always rational and mature. Sis, Ningjing said that when you leave three-way black market, she'll leave too. She can hide to raise and give birth. Can you do the same? Sis, Long Feiyi wants to bring you back to Heaven Mountain now. Can you do it? Mu Ling'er asked again. If Han Yunqi could do it, she would have gone into hiding long ago after the misunderstanding between her and Long Feiyi was resolved. There were no Western Qin princesses in this world. How desperate must the D clan be after persevering for so many years? Back then, didn't Long Feiyi say something out of anger and ask her to stay by his side incognito? Han Yunqi was silent. She knew better than Mu Ling'er that it wasn't the right time. However, Long Feiyi's lonely eyes kept appearing in her mind. Chapter 920. Han Yunqi had always been firm. The only thing that could shake her heart was Long Feiyi's every word and action. She was the only one in the world who knew that a cold person like Long Feiyi would look forward to having a child so much. He was high and mighty, and his wealth was comparable to a country's. He could get whatever he wanted. She really couldn't give him much. Seeing that Han Yunqi didn't say anything, Mu Ling'er scolded her, your legs haven't even recovered. You've been so busy these days that you can't even take care of your meals. How can you still be pregnant? If you really want to have a child, you should get rid of that Bai guy as soon as possible. You should settle the grudge between East and Western Qin. You can have as many children as you want. Sis, even if you can hold on for 10 months, what about after the child is born? Mu Ling'er asked again. Perhaps after 10 months, East and Western Qin would be reconciled, and the world would be at peace. Long Feiyi would be able to accompany her to enjoy the joy of a family reunion. Perhaps it wouldn't even take 10 months. Soon, East and Western Qin would be at war. Everything would be unpredictable. What about the child? Would they continue to hide, or would they become the target of public criticism, or would they become something that both sides would fight over? Sis, you don't even know martial arts. You're always a burden to Long Feiyi. Can you guarantee that if you have a child, you won't be a burden to Long Feiyi? He's got a lot of guts on his shoulders. Mu Ling'er had said everything she could, but Han Yunqi remained silent. Mu Ling'er seemed impulsive and reckless, but her heart was more delicate than anyone else's. If it weren't for this delicate heart, she would probably have been tortured to death by Gu. Mu Ling'er knew that Han Yunqi understood what she said. It would be difficult for her to convince Han Yunqi. She hesitated for a moment and said one last sentence, Sis, you and I are both motherless children. You should understand. These words were like a knife that gouged Han Yunqi's heart. Not only did she not have a mother, she didn't even have a father. Ever since he was young, he had longed for stability and companionship. She had suffered the hardships of being homeless, lonely, and helpless, so she hoped to give her child the best of everything. Responsibility didn't start from the moment she had children, but from the moment she decided to give them life. Han Yunqi still didn't say anything. She lowered her eyes, pushed the wheel, and slowly went out. Mu Ling'er didn't chase after her. She looked at Han Yunqi's receding figure, and her heart ached for no reason. Han Yunqi, what kind of decision did you make? After Han Yunqi left Ningjing's courtyard, she immediately went to the Elders' Guild. Although her face was full of fatigue, her eyes were clear and firm, sharp and spirited, as if all the troubles and contradictions had never existed. Fifth Elder, Kangon Private Bank will send someone over to sign the secret agreement later. When the time comes, you'll sign the agreement on behalf of Myriad Merchant Hall. Prepare well tonight and release the news early tomorrow morning. Remember to inform the auction house and prepare to write something, so that when the auction opens tomorrow, we can warm up the place, Han Yunqi instructed seriously. Princess plans to travel? Head Elder asked curiously. We can't delay the matter at the casino. Uncle Chang is right. If East Origin Hall gets ahead of us, we won't be able to do anything. Uncle Chang and I will make a trip. You should come with us. If we can agree on the price, we'll get it done today. Han Yunqi said. This price of 500 million is really. Head Elder still felt the pinch for the money. Uncle Chang, who had been silent all this time, immediately spoke up. Head Elder, if you continue to hesitate, we might as well not go. Let East Origin Hall buy it, and then you'll regret it. Head Elder glanced at him, but didn't say anything. Uncle Chang continued, if Master Ning was here, he wouldn't hesitate for so long. These words made everyone sigh with emotion. Ning Chang was famous for being decisive, and indeed wouldn't hesitate. If Ning Chang, the clan head, was here, the Council of Elders wouldn't have to take such a huge risk. If Master Ning isn't here, then it's fine as long as the princess is. It's the same for the princess to decide on this matter. When fifth elder said this, head elder was even more speechless. Han Yunqi didn't say much either. After agreeing on a time with Uncle Chang and head elder, she returned to her room to catch up on sleep. Uncle Chang had prepared everything. Seeing that it was still early, he planned to go to the auction house to take a look. Unexpectedly, as soon as he stepped out of Myriad Merchant Hall, someone wrapped an arm around his neck from behind. "Who's there?" Uncle Chang was about to retaliate, but the person behind him warned him coldly, "Uncle Chang, why don't you try and hit me? I'll immediately tell Han Yunqi that you were looking for me." Jin Z. Uncle Chang was shocked. He had been so busy with the casino that he had neglected this guy. He said in a low voice, "Do you think Han Yunqi will believe you?" "Of course she won't believe me, but she will believe the 3 manservants in my hands." Deacon Jean lowered his head, his fine bangs covering his eyes. His eyes couldn't be seen, but the slight curve of his lips was cold and malicious. Han Yunqi has been looking for those 3 manservants for a long time. Uncle Chang was finally shocked. Those 3 manservants were the ones he had sent to smash up the casino. Didn't he give them money to leave three-way black market? How did they end up in Deacon Jin's hands? "Jean Z, let me go, and I'll give you your indenture agreement right now," Uncle Chang said seriously. Deacon Jean laughed loudly. "Indenture agreement? What do I need it for? Let me tell you, if Myriad Merchant Hall doesn't help me pay off my debt to Kangon Private Bank, I'm not done with you." Where was Uncle Chang going to take out more than 300 million to pay off his debt? Deacon Jean knew Uncle Chang very well, so he wanted Uncle Chang to persuade Han Yunqi and the Elders Guild to help him pay off his debt. However, Uncle Chang knew that Han Yunqi would never help Deacon Jean pay off his debt. Uncle Chang knew Deacon Jean too well. Deacon Jean looked calm, but he was actually an extremely vicious character. If this matter wasn't settled, he would never have a day of peace. Uncle Chang hesitated for a moment, then said in a low voice, "Give me 2 days. I'll go out for a while and come back to help you pay off your debt." Deacon Jean laughed coldly. "Uncle Chang, are you going out to get money? Han Yunqi and head elder are going to buy 2 gardens. I have a way to get some money. There's more than 250 million. Adding my savings, it's enough to pay off your debt," Uncle Chang said seriously. "Why should I believe you?" Deacon Jean asked in return. "You can choose not to believe me. If you go find Han Yunqi right now, I won't have a good time. You won't have a good time either," Uncle Chang said coldly. Deacon Jean hesitated for a moment, but in the end, he let Uncle Chang go. He wasn't afraid that Uncle Chang would run away, so he would trust him this time. He said, "All right, pay off your debt first. We'll talk about the indenture agreement later." Although Uncle Chang nodded, a cold glint flashed through his eyes. Once he got his hands on those 3 servants, how could he let Deacon Jean off? Was this brat tired of living to behave so atrociously in Myriad Merchant Hall's territory? Han Yunqi only caught up on an hour's sleep before decisively getting out of bed. She washed her face to wake herself up, then set off immediately. Uncle Chang and garden owner Jia Dai had arranged to meet at South Ju Garden, which was close to three-way black market. They arrived in less than 2 hours. Entering South Ju Garden side gate, they sat on a palanquin and were carried by servants for a long distance before arriving at a courtyard. There was a pavilion in the courtyard that was very imposing. Jia Dai was at the bottom of the pavilion, welcoming them. This Jia Dai was about 50 years old. He had a grizzled goatee and was dressed in a black robe. He was low-key and steady, giving off the impression that his background wasn't simple. "Old Master Jia, this is my master, Madam Han." Uncle Chang only introduced Han Yunqi, while First Elder disguised himself as a servant. Jia Dai smiled and bowed. After exchanging a few pleasantries, he invited them upstairs. When they entered the tea house, Jia Dai found an opportunity to replace his knees with 2 fingers and kneel in front of Han Yunqi. He then said, "Madam Han, please forgive our humble tea for not serving you well." "Old Master Jia is too courteous," Han Yunqi replied politely to show that she knew what was going on. After a few cups of tea, Uncle Chang said, "Old Master Jia, my master agreed to the price you mentioned last time. I wonder if today," before Uncle Chang could finish, Jia Dai interrupted, "Aya, that price? Sai, to be honest, you're a step too late. What's going on?" Han Yunqi pretended to be anxious, but First Elder was really anxious. "Someone came early this morning to put down a deposit. To be honest, the buyer is very generous. He offered 600 million taels in one go. He wants both gardens, Jia Dai said with a chuckle. 600 million? First elder couldn't help but cry out. Uncle Chang kept winking at Jia Dai. Jia Dai finally looked at him and then stepped on his foot under the table. Uncle Chang immediately understood what was going on. This Jia Dai must be testing Han Yunqi to raise the price. Thinking of this, Uncle Chang knew what he should do. He asked, Old Master Jia, you're not being kind. We agreed on 500 million taels. Master Chang, last time I reminded you that there were already people who had their eyes on my 2 gardens. You didn't put down a deposit at that time, so you can't blame me for this. Jia Dai said confidently. First elder glanced at Han Yunqi. He was clearly anxious. Only East Origin Hall could afford 600 million taels. Since East Origin Hall was so decisive, it meant that these 2 gardens were indeed valuable. If East Origin Hall really used them to open a casino, then it would be just as Uncle Chang said. Myriad Merchant Hall should never have any ideas about casinos in the future. Jia Leoi, how much did the buyer put down as a deposit? Han Yunqi asked. Jia Dai raised a finger. It was undoubtedly 100 million taels. For such a large transaction, it was impossible to only put down a 10 million taels deposit. 100 million taels. Han Yunqi was deep in thought. She whispered to First Elder, what do you think? The Great Elder was hesitant. Previously, he had only guessed that the East Origin Hall would come and buy it. Now that the East Origin Hall had really come to buy it, he had no choice but to reconsider the importance of these 2 territories. However, the price was too high, and it was beyond his expectations. First Elder didn't say anything for a long time. Uncle Chang hurriedly pulled him to the side to persuade him. Uncle Chang couldn't use Ning Chang to pressure First Elder. Uncle Chang's original intention was only to make things difficult for Han Yunqi. In fact, as long as Han Yunqi couldn't find a site, it was fine if he didn't earn this extra income. But now that he was being threatened by Deacon Jean, he had to take this money to help pay off Deacon Jin's debt. Otherwise, his life would be over. Uncle Chang persuaded First Elder, and he actually managed to persuade him. Of course, First Elder still respected Han Yunqi's opinion. He said in a low voice, Princess, you can make the decision. Han Yunqi glanced at Uncle Chang, her gaze distant. She said, Old Master Jia, we'll offer 700 million taels. Think about it. You'll still earn more from the liquidated damages. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.